and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
You're in one of the 15 smallest markets. On opening day, you have zero chance of winning a World Series. Is that really the system we want? Like, I don't think it is. And I think it's okay in the NBA that the Oklahoma City Thunder have the best team. And I think it's okay in the NFL that teams can go from last to first. And I don't think this system works.
That was Jim Bowden yesterday reacting live to the news that we found out last night that T-Bone was right all along. If teams across Major League Baseball are going to offer 3, 4, 5 years to Kyle Tucker, guess what? He's going to do the obvious, and he's going to land with the LA Dodgers. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. What a night. It was officially announced yesterday that Kyle Tucker signed a 4-year, $240 million deal with the LA Dodgers. That is a $60 million annual salary for Kyle Tucker, who is a really great player and a guy that I would want nothing to do with at $60 million per year.
It's only 4 years, though. Can't hurt you that bad.
Guys, the Cardinals were paying future Hall of Fame first baseman Paul Goldschmidt, who is like the perfect baseball player. There is almost nothing that you can look at in his profile and say, yeah, but he doesn't do X, Y, or Z. No, he's great at everything. They were paying him $25 million a year through his prime. Kyle Tucker just got $60 million. That's crazy.
Is it really 60 though? Because it's deferred.
Yeah, it's
you know,
like
they'll pay it. Yeah, they'll pay it off
real
down
time
the
value
road
or whatever the
it's
hell.
kind of like
is.
Shohei, where you're really making only like $1 million a year until like 2082.
I'm sure that a lot of people had the same reaction last night as I did. I'm ready for a cap. I'm as pro player as anybody, man. I love these guys. They are worth all of the money. They deserve to get it. And they're the reason that we watched the games. This is ridiculous. And I'm sick of people like Ken Rosenthal, who I think does a really good job by and large and is one of the most well-trusted reporters that are out there. I am sick of him writing, well, you should actually be thankful for the Dodgers because they're trying. Yeah, they are, and that's great. The system's bleeped. This isn't working. And I understand why players will look at it and say, well, I could be the next Kyle Tucker. So I don't want a cap because I want to be the next $60 million a year player. Guess what? 99% of you will never be that. You won't.
Yikes.
I'm sorry, but most of you will never get the deal that Kyle Tucker just got. And most of you, the vast, vast, vast majority of you, are not Shohei Ohtani. You know how I know that, Alex?
How, buddy?
Because we've never seen one before.
That's what they said about Babe Ruth.
So if we're really arguing on behalf of like the top 30 players in the sport and we're arguing against the other, I don't know, 25 players on every roster across the league, I don't know how to help you guys. But this system is very clearly broken when the Dodgers right now have the following players on a deal worth more than $100 million. Tyler Glasnow, Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Blake Snell, Kyle Tucker, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Mookie Betts, and Shohei Ohtani. That's 8 players worth more than $100 million on their current roster. Meanwhile, the Cardinals, in their history, I believe, have signed 2 such players. In their history of the franchise. And we're not talking about the Pirates here. We're talking about the bleeping Cardinals. I'm done. I'm out. This system stinks. And if that means that we've got to go through a lockout next year to fix it, so be it.
Yeah, I had no visceral reaction to it because I kind of just anticipated it was going to happen, and I'm numb to it now. But to your point of, you know, well, maybe I'll be the next Kyle Tucker to make $60 million. You want to know why baseball's broken? Because guess what? If you are that guy, there's only one team that's going to sign you, and it's the Dodgers. And that's the problem with all of this right now. And, you know, I saw Jim Bowden say it this morning, and I couldn't agree more. I'm just done with it. I'm done with it. It needs to have some type of salary cap. It needs to have a floor. It needs to cap off players and teams so that you don't see things like this. And I know the narrative is, I know that it comes down to people saying, it's like, well, the players aren't going to want to do that. Well, I have to imagine players a part of 29 other teams are looking around going, what's the point? Like, I know everybody has that competitive edge, but even the most competitive individual has to look at the Dodgers and say, what's the point? What's the point of even doing this? Maybe an injury happens. Cool. You know what they'll do if an injury takes place? They'll go out and trade for somebody and make cap space for it.
Or they just play all of their young guys that they have, which is what happened last year. Their rotation was broken for 90% of the season, and it didn't matter.
No.
Yeah, their saviors in their rotation last year would have been, like, great for the Cardinals rotation.
They would have been the number one starter.
Yeah, like, think of that for a moment.
It's to the point now where your concern is fans not wanting to pay any attention to it. Like, this, other than the diehards, this breaks people's will of even wanting to invest any time into their team. So all credit to you, Dodgers, because you have officially made fans go against players, because now I feel like fans around baseball are rooting for the same thing we are, to see a lockout so that a cap takes place.
Can I yell at a texter real quick?
I don't know. We got to be nice to the texters.
No. From the 314. That was a rhetorical question. I'm going to do it no matter what you said.
I know. What I didn't need was not rhetorical tone.
You know what? Why do you even ask the question then, too?
From the 314.
You ask the question on what purpose?
Bleep the cap in Major League Baseball. A cap only allows cheap owners to keep being cheap. Make the DeWitts pay a real player. They have the money. It's the owner's job to put fans in the seats by winning. Simple.
It is pretty simple, man.
This is no longer just cheap owners being cheap. When that was happening, and it was the Pirates and the Marlins and the Rockies and the A's and the White Sox, and these are the teams that annually we look at and say, well, it's on you for not spending. This isn't that any longer. It's not about me looking at the teams that aren't spending. It's me looking at the team, not plural, the team that is spending as much on their payroll this year as the top two teams in the NL Central combined. In fact, more than the top two teams in the NL Central combined on their payroll. The LA Dodgers this year, in terms of their CBT threshold, so the 40-man tax number, $400 million is what they're spending on their team. $400 million. Do we think that the Texas Rangers are a cheap organization, guys?
No, obviously they are.
They are the team that went out and they signed Corey Seager to a massive contract and had Marcus Semien on a massive deal and signed Jacob deGrom for good measure, right? Like they really went for it to win a World Series. Do you know what their CBT number is this year? Because it's a pretty good, healthy number. $197 million. It is less than half what the Dodgers are spending. So no. This is not about cheap owners refusing to spend. It is about a system in place. And I'm not even mad at the Dodgers. They're taking advantage of the system that's there. This isn't on them. This is like when the Golden State Warriors went out and added Kevin Durant to a loaded roster. It's not on the Warriors for doing that. The NBA screwed up. They had the cap spike in a year when everybody told them, do not do this. The NBA Players Association was mostly to blame for that because, no, we're not smoothing this out over 5 years. Have a huge spike increase in the cap in one offseason and get all of this money into the system, and it allowed for Kevin Durant to go play for the Warriors. That's what's happening right now in Major League Baseball. Everybody's looking by and looking out for their own self-interest. It's college football all over again. Nobody actually wants to look out for the betterment of the sport, and so everything is going to hell. And the Dodgers are the team that's able to take advantage of it.
I truly believe, I don't think he's good at his job, but I truly believe Manfred cares about the nature of the sport, right? The competitive balance in it. The problem is he's gotten to it too late. Like now he's gotten the Dodgers that have gotten to this point. As the RSN model has crumbled across baseball, well, now the teams that have their own networks have such a competitive advantage against everybody else. So your teams on the coast, the Dodgers, the Cubs, teams on the East Coast like the Yankees. So Manfred cares, I think, truly about competitive balance. He's just too late, right? He's too late in getting to this issue that is what has become the Death Star out west in the LA Dodgers. Yeah, baseball needs a salary cap so they can help bump up these smaller markets and make people that are in like Cleveland, these other smaller markets, like when the A's or Tampa Bay Rays, for example, I should say, Baltimore, who finally started to spend some money this offseason, feel like they've got themselves a chance because right now, like, if we're being honest, this feels a lot like what you just mentioned with the NBA with the Warriors. All right, well, I know who's getting to the World Series in the National League. I don't know who's going to get their butt kicked by them in the World Series, but I know the Dodgers are going to be coming out of the National League, and that's what the NBA had there now, at where it was. They had always, it was, okay, you know the Warriors are going to be there, you know the Cavs are going to be there with LeBron. So this is an issue that they have definitely got to address. The problem is, you said it, both sides are looking out for themselves. The players are looking out for themselves. They're more businessmen right now than they are really caring about the competitiveness of baseball. They don't really care about what the fans' reaction is to us. They want to be the guys that get that next big contract.
The problem is you need the fans.
Exactly.
And once you lose the fan interest in your sport, and there's a fine line there. I know right now the TV ratings are up. How long does that sustain, though? I don't know. And baseball is a sport where it's driven by the regular season, unlike many other sports. You got 162 games of this. And if your fan base across Major League Baseball checks out locally, and baseball, again, is a local sport where I follow my team more than I follow the national side of things. If my team, I go into it knowing they have no shot starting on opening day, what's the point of me watching?
Yeah, I told you guys before the show, if I'm a Dodgers, like if I'm the Cardinals and I have this roster and I've won as much as I've won, I don't care about my team until October. Like a Dodgers fan, why am I watching regular season? Why am I paying any attention? You're going to be the best team in the National League. Even if you deal with a slew of injuries, you'll be fine. And then when the playoffs come around, I'll pay close attention to it.
So much the Dodgers, like the Cubs, for example. I brought this up. The Cubs are like pretending they're big boys now, right? We went and got Bregman. Look, we traded for Edward Cabrera. If I'm a Cubs fan today, how do I really feel
how about the Mets? I got Juan Soto last year. Now I just signed Bo Bichette. Doesn't matter.
By the way, news breaking in Major League Baseball. Glad you brought it up, Alex. Bo Bichette has signed, is it a 3-year deal?
Three-year deal, $126 million with
$42 million
Mets
per year. So they pivot off of the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes and ultimately land Bo Bichette.
He will play third base, by the way, according to Will Salmon.
And it doesn't matter. And this is why, look, I hate lockouts. I hate strikes. They need it. They need to go, and it needs to go as long as it needs to until you get a salary cap to make baseball enjoyable.
314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can always check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. One quick thought on the Bo Bichette sweepstakes coming to an end with the New York Mets ultimately signing him. That's great news for the Cardinals. Bo Bichette not going to the Phillies, where they could potentially then put one of their infielders on the market to trade. Not going to the Boston Red Sox, who could have potentially landed him and pivoted their attention away from guys like Brendan Donovan. Not going to the Giants, the Mariners, hell, even the Toronto Blue Jays. That's all really good news for the Cardinals, as they now have more teams that could potentially be interested in a guy like Brendan Donovan, and also Lars Nootbaar, who's still out there on the trade market potentially as well.
And just real quick, the best part about that too, it's kind of a surprise, right? We kind of heard the Mets were involved, but it felt like it was Philly for sure that they were going to be the one that ended up with him. And Boston was another one that had interest. Mets kind of had fallen off the table. And then Steve Cohen woke up and said, I am tired of this Dodgers crap. Give me Bo Bichette and let's make this thing happen.
Yeah, but it's not going to matter, Steve, unfortunately.
Yeah, probably not, but they make a signing nonetheless. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we'll get into NFL quick hitters. At the end of this hour, we will have Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we'll get into that coming up at 11:45. But next, Alex, Twitter was down this morning, so I did some research on the Blues. How do teams perform not only in that season, but the next year that have a similar goal differential to where the Blues are at right now? I'll give you my findings coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Twitter was down today, so I had some time. Decided to do some research.
Funny that that's what you do with your time.
On our St. Louis Blues. I was going to prep for the show. I typically do a bunch of searches on Twitter, see kind of what's out there, what could be of interest for our show. That wasn't an option today, so instead I decided, you know what, I'm curious. Where do the Blues fall in this specific area?
Twitter.
So the Blues have a negative 44 goal differential this season.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's tied for the worst in the NHL so far.
Oh, who caught us?
The Vancouver Canucks are a negative 44 also.
They're pretty bad.
On the
They're pretty
season.
Bad. They've used the re-word.
Yeah.
Tool?
No, build. Ooh, worse.
So I wanted to look up other teams in recent NHL history that had a negative 44 goal differential or worse through their first 47 games to find out teams that are in a similar spot then to where the Blues are today.
Sounds like a fun research, man. I'm excited to see what you came up with.
You're not going to be surprised by this, Alex, but no team with a goal differential this bad in the last 20 years at this point in the season.
So it's an anomaly.
Ultimately made it to the playoffs.
So it's an anomaly.
The most wins by any team was 20. The only team to finish with more than 75 points were the 2014 Flames. They had 77 that year. And the 2010 Devils, they had 81 points that season. So in other words, 81 was the high water mark. For reference, the Blues have not had fewer than 80 points in a full season since 2008. So that's the kind of company you're keeping for
Wasn't
this
that the year
current
where they end
roster.
up like drafting Petro number 1 overall?
No, they drafted Petro 4th overall. That was 08. Johnson was 06.
Okay,
So-
that
It
was
was
right
one
at time
overall.
frame. Yeah,
So yes, T-Bone, you're right.
it wasn't 1, but yeah.
1, 4. What's the difference? It was a bad 3-year window.
I decided to then take it a step further because we know this team's bad. They're not going to the playoffs. They're probably going to sell at the deadline. We kind of have a pretty good idea of who
They're only
this team
5
is.
out though.
You didn't listen like BK didn't listen.
I wanted to look at what those teams also did the following season. Because as we started having conversations, Alex, over the last few days about Robert Thomas and what his future says about the Blues' future and all of these different things, I thought to myself, well, where are the Blues at? Not just for right now, but like big picture-wise, because we're talking about them missing the playoffs, 4 of the last 5 seasons, if they do so this year. And really, it very easily could have been each of the last 5 seasons, if not for a hot 2-month stretch coming off of a major break with the Four Nations face-off. 25 teams in the last 15 years had a similar goal differential to the Blues right now. Among those 25, only 2 ended up with more than 75 points. Mentioned that 2014 Flames and 2010 Devils. Only 4 of those teams finished with more than 80 points the next year. It was the 2017 Avs, the 2015 Flames, and the 2011 Devils. Those 3 teams, the Avs, had 95 points. They lost in the first round.
What year was that again?
2017, I guess.
I think that was like what, the first full year of McKinnon or
That's
a
what I was
couple years
looking
out of
at.
McKinnon.
2016 draft was Tyson Jost. So, yeah, 2015 draft, that was probably the McKinnon
That's
year.
probably it, yeah.
Yeah.
Nathan McKinnon in 2017 had a line mate of Mikko Rantanen.
I guess it was
I think that's
good.
pretty good. They were 21 and 22 years old.
2015
At that point,
was
Gabriel
Rantanen.
Landeskog was also a big part of their team. He had 65 points. Rantanen had 85 points. McKinnon had nearly 100. So it was a breakout season for McKinnon, and boom, now they're off and running, right? So that's how they figured it out. They get to 95 points, ultimately lose in the first round, but then start this era of Avs hockey. 2014, the Flames have 77 points the next year, 97 points for them, and they ultimately lose in the second round of the playoffs. But
That was pre-Matthew Tkachuk, too.
It was indeed. And then the 2010 Devils, they were one of these outlier teams that they did kind of get things back on track to some degree in 2010, ultimately finished with 81 points after having a terrible goal differential at this point in the season. And then the next year, they have 102 points and get to the Stanley Cup final, lose, but get to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, they had a guy named Martin Brodeur. So
Yeah.
That's it. That's the entire list of teams in the last 15 years that are in a similar spot to the Blues right now, and then made it to the playoffs the next season or got more than 80 points the next season. Alex, are we kidding ourselves to think that the Blues are going to get back on track next year? Is this a true rebuild where next year is probably going to be something similar to what we're witnessing right now?
it's possible. I don't know if it's because I don't want to tell myself that it's true or I believe that they can turn it around, but it's very possible that this is, I mean, look, it's 4 or 5 years you've missed the playoffs with the potential of it being 5, if not for that run. I mean, that's a rebuild. I remember Armstrong talking at the beginning of the season who said, prior to the Holloway and Broberg acquisitions and what they turned into last year, they had discussed with ownership that this was going to be the worst year that they were going to go through in this. So they believed it was going to be that 3 to 5 year window, and it's been a 5-year window, and we had that false taste of, hey, they're good here. So yeah, realistically, they could be awful again next year. Again, I don't know if it's because I'm trying to convince myself that I don't want it to happen or it's possible. I do think they have better pieces than some of those teams. Now, I'd have to go back and look through most of those rosters, but I mean, even like the Calgary Flames, that was prior to them with Matthew Tkachuk, but they then stunk the year after where they got better and they drafted Matthew Tkachuk. So like they yo-yoed back with being competitive. I think this team that ultimately had the success had Johnny Gaudreau.
I think that was Gaudreau's rookie or close to a rookie year.
He was 21 years old at the time.
Lindholm.
And Lindholm was on this roster as well. They were just really good defensively.
Yeah.
So that was kind of their calling card.
The part for me that I would sit here and say I don't know if they'll be this bad to where they're drafting top 3 again next year is if you get an elite talent, and I feel like you personally have some pieces that you can have success with Broberg, with some of these forwards like Holloway and Snuggerud and Dvorsky in terms of development, it comes down to the goaltending. And I know that sounds odd for me to say because they have the worst goal differential in the National Hockey League, but Joe Hofer's been one of the better goaltenders in the National Hockey League over the last month and a half. So I don't know if your goaltending will allow you to be that bad again next year. But again, if they don't make necessary changes to their roster, if they say this was a bad year, we'll draft an elite talent and run it back with the same group, then yeah, I would absolutely invest in the idea of them being another bad team. And you are in the midst of a rebuild.
I'm expecting them to be bad next year. Like I think we're kidding ourselves if we think that they can turn this thing around extremely fast. Now, if they do it, I think it probably is that Flames one that you mentioned where they were a good defensive team, because the one area where I will say I think they've got some decent pieces would be defense. Parayko, Broberg, maybe you get a bounce back year from Fowler and you end up with like Jurczyk comes in and he's a stud right away. I think odds of that are unlikely though. They just don't have the talent. They don't have the pieces to make this quick turnaround for them. Like Robert Thomas is not a guy that's going to uplift a team like McKenna, right? We haven't seen him do it yet. And if they decide to keep him, right, we can table the conversation if he is on the trade block or not for now. But let's just say, Thomas is back. I haven't seen him uplift an entire team like McKinnon has done in his career. And that's not to say Thomas is a bad player, right? But I think he's just in the wrong spot right now and is just being asked to do too much, right? Kairu's not going to be that guy either. So I don't think there's a chance that they're going to be able to just suddenly flip the switch and be able to turn this around. And especially if we're talking about this core being a rotten core that we have talked about, and it's part of the reason why Thomas could potentially be on the trading block. I have no faith in this core to turn this thing around. This is 4 years now that we've seen they get off to slow starts, and outside of a really hot 20-game stretch that we made reference to, that is the only sign of real hope that you have seen from this core that they could turn things around.
Sorry, BK. That's the point that I didn't make as well as T-Bone did. Unless they change the group that they have, it's going to be another bad season. The last 5 seasons on December 31st, the Blues have had a 500 or a one game below 500 record. They've been a 500 team. They've been average for the last 5 years, and it's required 2 coaches getting fired, and it's required 3 different pushes down the end of the regular season to at least sniff the playoffs. So unless you change the group that you have to something new, how can I expect it to be anything different next year?
And this is why when we talked the other day about the Robert Thomas trade, the possibility of one, right? We're not saying it's going to happen, but in a theoretical sense, if that's something that is actually on the table for the team, what do you need to get back in return? Alex, we talked about, do you get a center that can help you right away? Do you get somebody that can immediately plug in as a top 6 player for you? And one of the reasons that we were talking about that is because of the top 3 overall selection and what that opens up for you. Nathan McKinnon was a very good player for the Avs right away. And what that meant is he was a 20 to 25 goal scorer and a 50 to 60 point producer for the first 4 years of his NHL career. He did not become the Nathan McKinnon that we now know him to be until he was 22 years old, year 5 in the NHL, when he broke out with 39 goals and 97 points and never looked back. And ever since, he has not only been a point-per-game player, but he's been among the best players in the NHL every year, like a plus 20, every year putting up 90-plus points. That doesn't happen immediately for most players, though. Most players, it takes at least a couple of seasons. Hell, Connor Bedard, we're seeing that. It took a little while for him to adjust, and he was a generational prospect, is the way that he was lauded. There are none of those guys in this year's draft. There are really good prospects and guys that I would be very excited to see on the Blues, including Stenberg. But none of them had the kind of history that Connor Bedard did. And it just makes me wonder, are we overestimating how much that can immediately change the fortunes of the Blues? I think long-term, it not only can, but probably will. But immediately, I look back to history, and most of these guys don't have that level of impact right away. I do think that the Blues are in a rebuild right now. I think that we need to acknowledge as much. I think it helps us to evaluate not only the roster right now, but also the decisions that they're likely to make. And if that is the lens through which we need to view this team, I think a Robert Thomas trade should be on the table. I think a Jordan Kyrou trade should be on the table. I think trading Schenn should almost be a foregone conclusion. I think trading Parayko might be something you at least consider at some point in the next year or so. I think Justin Falk should be good as gone. I think Pius Suter should be somebody that you talk about this year at the trade deadline, because it's not about getting as many points as possible this year. It's about getting the best assets possible. You get into that asset accumulation mode once again, similar to where the Cardinals find themselves.
Yeah.
It sucks. I don't take any joy in saying any of
the part
this
that
stuff,
makes it even worse is like this one felt like it was not coming, right?
Yeah.
Because
I thought they were done.
Because the Cardinals, you could kind of see the tea leaves coming, right? They had tried, like 23, they thought, okay, well, this is a one-off. 24, they do their whole pitching off-season thing, which failed spectacularly. And then you look at it and go, okay, it's clear by 2025, this is probably not going to work. I know they gave it the year of runway. We all kind of knew it probably wasn't going to work. And if it did, they were probably going to end up being like more of the Reds than anything else, where if you got in, you kind of snuck into the playoffs. So that one, it's like, okay, you could see it coming. This one is shocking based on what happened last year.
By the way, I know a lot of people, and I'm sure you probably will as well, Alex, and I get it. A lot of people pushing back on the idea that you would trade Colton Parayko. Guys, Parayko would get you an absolute haul in return, first of all. And second of all, he's about to turn 33. If we're talking about being 3 years at least before you're really a legitimate contender again, talking about age 36 Colton Parayko at the very end of his current contract, I don't know how anybody can feel confident that he will be the same player at that point that he has been up to this point. I don't take joy in any of this, just as I didn't take joy in saying that the Cardinals should trade Brendan Donovan this offseason. He's my favorite Cardinals player. I love watching the guy play, and I think he is somebody that in a different world would be one of the centerpieces of the next 5 Cardinals teams. We don't live in that world, unfortunately. And if the Cardinals and the Blues are going into a rebuild, these are the kinds of things you not only have to consider, but you have to really think about what you can get in return.
Yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with any of it. I don't know if I would get to that point where I would start shipping out guys like Colton Parayko. I think a lot of people would say Jordan Binnington. I don't know if I would do that yet, because I have to imagine if you're the front office group, the hope is
I'd start considering that too. If you're going into a rebuild,
the hope is that if you think Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou are part of the problem, that you can find a piece that comes in to be the solution by moving those pieces out, and you have some of the pieces that can work now.
I'm just asking this question because
I think that would be a huge mistake.
I think if it is a conversation they're having, this is the question that has to be asked in that room. Because this is not if you're having conversation about Thomas and Kyrou, it's because of what you just said, right? It's not working. We think it could be a big part of, they might be part of the problem. But I think you can still have this conversation. is anybody else on this roster better than Robert Thomas?
No.
And the answer is no. And if that's the case, I don't think you can expect that those guys are going to be the ones that you turn it around. And like you said, with a young pick, if he comes in, I'm sorry, maybe he needs 3 years to kind of adjust to it. Like, you are talking about it taking 3 years to get to that spot. That's where, if you're having that conversation, it has got to be, this is a rebuild, and we should treat it like a rebuild and tear this thing down.
If you're not planning on winning next year, and I mean really winning next year, Jordan Binnington should absolutely be in consideration to being a trade candidate. He's 32 years old. He's under contract for 1 more year. He only has a modified no-trade clause. Those are the kinds of players that end up getting dealt in this kind of a situation. Colton Parayko needs to be under consideration. I think Kim Fowler should be under consideration as a potential trade candidate.
You're not moving that.
I hear you, but it's at least a conversation I would have. Justin Falk definitely should be traded at this year's deadline. You should try to see what you can get for Pavel Buchnevich. I don't think you're going to be able to move him, but I mean, at least have the conversations. These are
I just don't think
tough moves, but
they're tough moves. I don't think the organization has the appetite to do those moves.
if they're talking about trading Robert Thomas potentially, then they have
you're
to have the
trading
appetite
Robert
for doing
Thomas to
anything.
bring in talent on the other side. You're not trading Robert Thomas for first-round picks. You're trading Robert Thomas for top prospects that could be close to the NHL.
And when they're close to the NHL, it still takes time, as we've seen from Jake
but
Neighbors.
Close to the NHL means they could be in the
Davorsky.
NHL next year.
Definitely, no
You're
doubt.
not going to tear the team down to the studs and be the worst team in the National Hockey League next year.
You're already that.
That's fine, but you're not going to trade away Parayko and Fowler and Binnington and all of these pieces.
Why not?
Because you're not going to put a group of 22-year-olds on the ice for an 82-game schedule.
I mean, you'll probably sign some guys to piece it together.
Why not just keep them for another year?
Because you can get assets in return, and then you can go sign somebody in the free agent market. So I'm getting prospects in return for these guys, and then turning my attention to the free agent market to sign their replacements. So I have that spot filled. I've got a veteran that's going to be in the room, and I'm adding an asset to my team that either helps me in the future or when I'm going to be ready to win, helps me acquire a player that can help me win at that point.
I don't think the team has the appetite to do that. If the team's going to try and make moves, they're going to try and make moves that can put them back into at least a team that could sniff the playoffs next year.
Dude, I just gave you the recent history. I'm talking about like 15 years of history.
I'm giving you the mindset of what the front office is thinking.
I hear if they're thinking that way, I'm really worried about how long this is going to take for them.
Agreed.
Like really worried. And I think they're making the same mistake that the Cardinals did in tricking themselves into believing we are closer than we actually are. This team is not close. They are far away.
Nobody's saying they're close.
You just did.
No, I didn't say they're close. They're bad this year. What I'm saying is, can they trade pieces that they believe are part of the problem why this team is bad for younger pieces that could come in and be a part of the NHL team next year and help them compete? They believe in pack mentality, don't they? If they can trade
I think
pieces,
they say they believe that because they don't have the star.
Fine. But they might be drafting the star this year. But if they believe in pack mentality, they can trade pieces that they don't think are a part of the pack mentality to go get a piece that could come in that has talent upside, that could be a part of it to make them competitive again next year. Not saying they're a Stanley Cup contender next year, but can you start the process? Can you restart the process that you tried to start last year over again?
I think we're saying the same thing and getting to different conclusions.
No, but you're saying to blow it up. You're saying to just trade Fowler, trade Parayko, trade Binnington, trade everything and put minor league guys up there or sign veterans.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that. Why would you go sign a veteran when you have a guy who can play for you in Colton Parayko? Why would you sign another veteran when you've got Cam Fowler?
Because I think where we're missing here is those guys carry legitimate value on the trade
Fowler
market.
does Fowler does not trade value.
We can set Fowler aside. We can set Booch aside, right?
Sure,
like those
but you're
two,
going to trade Parayko. Who's playing Parayko minutes for you next year?
Some guy I bring it on a one-year deal.
Why wouldn't you just keep Parayko when you're going to get maybe a first-round pick for him?
Because that first-round pick has value.
You've done the asset accumulation and prospects.
It hasn't worked. It failed.
How are we going to say that about a 21-year-old Jimmy Snuggerud and a 20-year-old
Dell? I'm saying that about the first
You're saying it about Thomas and Kyrou.
Yes.
So you trade Thomas and Kyrou. You go find better pieces or other pieces that could come into the group that you've already done asset accumulation with and let them compete.
Because they're not actually ready to contend. Those guys.
But that's why I'm saying trade Thomas and go get a guy who's in their age bracket.
Absolutely. And I'm in agreement with that. You should go get 22 to 23-year-olds. Those guys aren't ready to win yet. We're seeing it right now. Dalibor Dvorsky is not ready to lead this team. Jimmy Snuggerud is not ready to lead this team. Jake Neighbors is not ready to take this team over the top just yet. Could they be in 2 or 3 years? Maybe. And if you add continuously to that core group of players, maybe they also help you do that. Maybe the number 2 or 3 overall selection also helps you do that. But when you have somebody like a Colton Parayko, he's not going to help you do that. He's about to be 36.
He's going to help you avoid being the worst team in the NHL for 5 years.
Alex, they're already that. They're already the worst team in the NHL right now.
This is the second time they'll be drafting top 10.
Understood. And we're saying next year they're likely to do that again, right?
You're saying that. I don't know if they are yet until I see what gets in return
Recent
for a Thomas
NHL
and Kyrou.
history would suggest it would be a massive outlier for them to not select in the top 10 next year. A massive outlier. And if you're trading one of Thomas or Falk, Kyrou, whoever these guys are, you're almost certainly getting worse, not better. The guys that you bring back in replacement of those players are likely to be worse next year, not long term, but next year than Thomas and Kyrou are right now. So how do you get better? How does this team get back into contention next year by trading those guys? They are in a really frustrating situation right now. And what I'm saying, I am not asking people to enjoy this or to think that this is a fun route for the team to be trending in. I do think it is their reality, though. And the Cardinals, for years, tried to pretend as if it wasn't. And we gave them so much crap for that. And I think deservingly so. And now they're paying for all of those sins. And my fear for the Blues is that they are about to go down the exact same path, where they try to tell themselves we're closer than we actually are. They end up making moves that would suggest they're closer than they actually are. They don't make the moves that are necessary. They whittle away all of the value that could have been there for a guy like a Colton Parayko or Robert Thomas or Jordan Kyrou, whoever else, and they end up missing on the potential trade value that is there currently. And they end up having these old, bloated contracts that are on their books, and they're stuck. And they end up being a bad team with older players that they can't trade. It's not a fun situation to be in. We went way too long on that conversation, but I think it was a really good one to talk about where the Blues currently find themselves, how they can potentially get them out, get out of this current situation, and what lies ahead for them. These are the kinds of conversations that I would assume are taking place right now inside of the room with Doug Armstrong and many of his lieutenants. There should be disagreement. There should be healthy debate on what the best path forward is, because they find themselves in a very frustrating situation. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I know there are a million different things that have come into the text line. We will answer some of those, get all of your questions in. Ask us anything, sports or otherwise, next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN's Blues Fan of the Week.
Congratulations to Sophie Meyer of Barnhart, Missouri. She's our newest 101 ESPN Blues Fan of the Week.
Submit your pick now at 101ESPN.com to be the next Fan of the Week and take home a pair of tickets to an upcoming Blues game.
Our Blues Fan of the Week is presented by CarStar, your auto body repair experts. Locally owned with nationwide warranty. See us at carstar.com.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my friends out at Classic Air Care, who is here to help you with your HVAC system needs. They've been making people comfortable since 1926. And I know this weekend, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be giving phone calls to Classic Air Care because, of course, the temperature is going to drop to freezing, which means if you've got that older unit that makes some noises here and there, but it's gotten you through the last few years, then you're probably going to have some type of system malfunction, and that's where Classic Air Care comes into play. I've been using them since 2016. I'm a part of their maintenance agreement to where twice a year they fine-tune my unit, come out, make sure it's good to go to get me through the upcoming season. But this is the biggest key. When there's issues that pop up, I give them a call, and I get a response within 24 hours, somebody out there to fix the problem. There's 100 fans out on the road with Classic Air Care, which means they're going to get back to you within 24 hours. They're open 7 days a week and have after-hour techs on call. So give them a call today. You can also schedule online. Check out that maintenance agreement. They also have financing options if you want to purchase a new HVAC system in the winter time. Whatever you need, Classic Air Care is there to take care of you. Again, schedule online. That's classicaircare.com.
Now listen to 101 ESPN On Demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Blues to battle Lightning without number 18. Good morning, I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tonight at 7, Jim Montgomery's club will host Eastern Conference best Tampa Bay. No Robert Thomas in this spot. STL's points leader was placed on injured reserve yesterday. The head coach does, however, see a silver lining for one youngster.
Especially for someone like Dalibor Dvorsky to increase his minutes from, I think he's been averaging 15. Now he's probably going to go to 17, and see how he handles that kind of workload. It just really speeds up his development for where we project him to be in the future here for us, in the real near future, too.
Montgomery's latest Fast Lane interview now available online. NFL playoffs divisional round matchups begin tomorrow. Buffalo-Denver action proceeds. San Francisco-Seattle Seahawks QB Sam Darnold listed as questionable. Your SportsCenter update has been powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, we get to them here on the Air Comfort Service text line. That was a really good conversation on the Blues, where they're at, what the situation is, what the future may hold for them. If you want to hear many different viewpoints on that, check it out on the podcast page after the show today, 101ESPN.com. And the 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Let's start out with this from the 314. Guys, are the Tucker and Bichette contracts short-term, high AAV? Good news for the Cardinals, who have always been allergic to longer-term contracts, even for stars. This is actually a really good question. I like it. I think in theory, yes, because this is more in line with what ownership has been willing to give out. Hell, look no further than what they did with Sonny Gray, which is not all that dissimilar from the Bichette contract that he just signed. It's like 3 years, $75 million, so it's less, don't get me wrong, but it's a big deal nonetheless on a shorter term. The problem is when you get into those bidding wars and it's for shorter term, now teams like the Mets and the Dodgers don't necessarily have to flex their financial might so much as would you rather live in St. Louis or LA or New York might? And that's where the location can potentially win out. So you're losing on both fronts. You're losing on the years and you're losing on location potentially. For some of these players, maybe they decide, hey, I actually prefer to be in a smaller market. There are some guys, like Paul Goldschmidt was one of those players. I think playing in St. Louis really appealed to him. But I think that could be a losing battle as well. They're just battling multiple different fronts at the same time.
Yeah, I think this is baseball versus hockey, but I think Armstrong said this before the season, and he said, when you're operating in a league with teams that have no state taxes, they're already at the top of the list in terms of destinations that players want to go to. And then you got the coast that plays into it. So more times than not, you're already starting 11th or 12th amongst all of those teams in free agency or in trade destinations that players want to go to.
Yeah, I don't know that. I would be curious to see when the Cardinals do get good again or competitive again, if they will have interest in these deals, because I don't know what I'm a little skeptical they're going to get their payroll back up to 170.
Will those deals be there though if the lockout happens? Yeah,
and that's another thing. But if there is a guy like a Bo Bichette that's willing to take that money, do the Cardinals really want to commit $40 million of their payroll a year to him, right? When they may have other big needs. I think it might be more likely if they would do it on the pitching side. I don't know if they're going to balloon it significantly for a position player yet, but it'll be interesting to see when they get back to that spot if it's in a competitive window.
From the 314, if you had to start a team today, would you rather start it with Kirby Smart or Curt Cignetti? I think because of age, you probably have to go Kirby Smart, but you told me, hey, you've got 5 years to go win a natty, who would you prefer? I'll go Cignetti.
I'll go Cignetti. Even with the age.
I'm going Kirby Smart. I still like Cignetti's done it. I'm not trying to take anything away from it. It's only 2 years. I've seen Kirby do it for almost a decade now at Georgia, and he's won national championships. Now we'll see how he's kind of adjusting. He still has built very good teams in this new version of college football. I can't wait to see what it looks like when he kind of really adjusts to the new version of college football, though.
314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. What are your favorite foods to eat while watching a game? Depends. When we go to Blues games, I think we might be going tonight out at Enterprise Center. What?
They're going to get killed.
Get to maybe see a 12-game win streak then, I guess.
That's pretty cool. History.
Lucas going to love it either way,
not
man.
going to like that.
We get Shake Shack at Enterprise.
That's pretty good.
That's a popular one there at Enterprise.
So good.
I don't have designated food for games. It's just a matter of like whatever I'm hungry for. I do nachos a lot during football season, though.
That's a solid choice.
Just like in mid-afternoon before that 3 o'clock
and then after
slate
you've ate your
starts.
nachos, right before that 3 o'clock slate, you doze off for a quick nap,
Well,
and you're
we have kids, man.
rejuvenated.
Yeah, I don't know the last time
I'm
I've
the
done
only
that.
one who gets to enjoy that.
I don't know the last time I've done that.
I'd say pizza is probably my go-to for like watching football. Like for the big game like Super Bowl, I want to order a pizza. That's what I want to do.
I have mastered the art of making homemade pizza dough. Now I
that
make
one
it
you
at
made look
home.
good.
Do you do sourdough pizza crust or just regular?
No, just
Okay.
like New York style pizza crust, and like I make it, and then I like divvy it up into like 6 different doughs, and so I put it in my fridge, and it's good for like 5 to 7
Are you
days.
really impressing the girls? And
Oh,
flicking those
dude, I
getting them up
am.
in the air?
I tried to get
Yeah.
Adelaide to do it, and she threw it and dropped it on the floor.
Oh, I
and
knew
she's
it.
like, "Daddy," I'm like, "Don't worry about
That's
it.
mom's piece
Just-
right
we'll
there.
wipe it off. There's little dog hair on it. It's fine."
From the 314, BK Portal window is coming to an end here soon. Still a lot of holes on the Mizzou roster unless some youngins are going to step up. Assuming there are no other big additions, where are you on the concernometer? So the portal closes today, but the portal closes in a way that is kind of confusing. It's actually just closed for people to get into it. You can still commit after the portal closes. This just means if you're not in it after the end of the day, you can't then enter the transfer portal. So I think there are still potentially some guys out there that Mizzou could add. Concernometer, scale of 1 to 10, I don't know, a 6, 6.5. I think it's legit. If you are concerned about Mizzou football, there are definitely reasons to be on that side. It's not just you panicking as a fan. I think the defense is probably going to be worse than it was a year ago. Missouri needs the offense to take a meaningful step forward in order for them to be a good team in 2026. And that basically means you better be right on Austin Simmons.
Yep.
If you're right on Austin Simmons, this team could be really good because that can carry you. If you get it wrong, though, they could win 5 or 6 games next year. That's at least in the realm of the possible. So it's a legit concern right now. The defense has a lack of edge rushers and a lack of corners, and when you have a lack of both, it's not a good way to live.
All right, I'm thinking in my head here, and I don't have a bunch of knowledge when it comes to college football. Never seen a team win that didn't have a pass rush and good corners.
But there are some that will tell you they're not basing the season around Austin Simmons.
Yeah, I mean, are they going to have to be a team that just has to outscore all their problems?
Maybe.
Like your typical Oklahoma team.
Unless some of the young guys take a step forward. I mean, it's possible they have some good defensive ends on the roster that we just didn't see much of this year. And maybe they're not Damon Wilson or Zion Young. Well, very few teams had Damon Wilson and Zion Young. I was listening to an NFL draft podcast yesterday, and Dane Brugler said it might have been a top 3 defensive end duo in all of college football. So, yeah, you're not going to have that. You were never going to have that next year, though. Could you have 2 guys that are productive? And could you have some corners that surprise you? They've got a couple of guys that came in from Oregon. They've got some real size at the position this year. I think one of their corners that they got in the transfer portal is 6'4". That's not the kind of size you typically see in that position.
No good at it then.
Yeah, maybe they're just better than we thought. And their corners weren't great last year either, to be fair.
No, it's a low bar to clear.
Their safeties weren't very good in coverage. Their corners were mediocre at best. Their edge rushers were quite good. So maybe corners take a slight step forward, edge rushers take a slight step back, and the offense takes a real step forward, and they get back to, 8-9 wins, maybe pull off an upset or 2. It's possible.
Yeah, my number's going to be higher after this conversation.
That's fair.
I'll say I'm at like a 7.
Bradford, you have 30 seconds. What's your concern-o-meter for Mizzou right now after what we've seen so far in the portal?
Much like you, BK, I will honestly put it at a 6. I won't go as far as 7 because while you would have liked to have seen more imports, more defensive contributors to this point, the fact of the matter is that you are essentially replacing all of your starters on that side. Offensively, you're set, but as far as being able to generate more from the edge and specifically at secondary, I need to see substance-wise what these individuals from Michigan State, Miami, et cetera, actually have before I buy in.
That was 30 seconds from Bradford Bruns. If you want an hour and a half from Bradford Bruns on the college football portal and the Mizzou quarterback situation, you can check out the latest edition of College Football Connection. It's on YouTube right now, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll talk to Chris Kerber. He's the voice of the Blues. We'll talk to him about where the Blues find themselves and what he's anticipating from the Blues tonight in a game that I'll potentially be in attendance for against,
weird stuff's gonna happen.
Team with an 11-game winning streak coming to town. But next, a former Cardinal made the case to keep Brendan Donovan. Does he make a fair point? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
This is Jake Neighbors, and it's game day on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN.
Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate arena for wings and wins. blues talk? Check out the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donnie Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on 101 ESPN. The guys bring you the latest news and nuggets on your St. Louis Blues.
The Last Minute Blues podcast is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for free inspection. Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast now on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Is there value in holding Brendan Donovan? Yeah. He's an all-star utility player, utility gold glove. Like, he's a stud, right? Of course there's value. And I think there's value to building your team around him. It's going to be really interesting as we see what Major League Baseball and what these teams do as they shift. Clearly there's teams making a little bit of a shift from swing and miss, a little bit of a shift from homer heavy, swing and miss heavy to some contact. And I think Donnie's just a guy that does that really well. Burley is a guy that does that really well. Kiner's a guy that does that really well. Mason Wynn does that really well. Like, I think these are the guys that could be really interesting to be on the forefront of that wave. I've never been on board with trading Brendan Donovan.
That was former Cardinal starter Kyle Gibson on the Cardinal Territory podcast saying, I think the Cardinals should hold on to Brendan Donovan. I'm not in favor of them making this deal. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. 12:07, your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Does he make a case that's compelling to you, Alex?
There's something there that I can see where he's coming from, because I do value the leadership capabilities and having a guy that is somewhat of a mentor in a clubhouse for guys like J.J. Weatherholt and whatnot. But that's not Brendan Donovan. Brendan Donovan is one of the most valued pieces around Major League Baseball. So as much as I do value having that type of mindset in a clubhouse and a guy who does have some type of pedigree to win, if you're getting multiple top prospects off of a roster, unfortunately, I'll have to take the prospects over the leadership in this circumstance, because you can sign a guy that provides some of the leadership qualities that Brendan Donovan has.
Yeah, he's not making a strong enough case for me to keep him. I think because he's a sought-after trade possibility this offseason, and a guy that I don't know that I would say he's the one that kind of accelerates your rebuild, but certainly gives you more assets and more ammunition to play with as you get more and further into the rebuild. He has to be gone. And I don't think he's a guy you build around. I think Kyle Gibson said that. I just flat out disagree with that. Now, we can have our different opinion on like what a core is, what do you build around. The guy that I build around is the stars, right? Those are the guys that you build around, like Weatherholt. If you think he's the star, that's what the Cardinals seem to think internally, that's the guy you build around, not the complementary piece in Brendan Donovan. And if you look at a complimentary piece and you look at him and go, okay, doesn't really fit when we think we're going to be in our next winning window, which could be 3 years away. He would technically hit his free agent years before that. That's a guy you have to trade, and a guy that would have value across baseball. And rather than waiting and sitting on your hands and letting the value diminish, he's a guy that you have to pull the trigger on and move on from. I don't think there's a case to keep Brendan Donovan.
Gibson's opinion is exactly why I think people across Major League Baseball will give up a lot for Brendan Donovan. Because I think, like, baseball people, players, guys that have been around the sport for a really long time, they value all of this stuff. His contact rate, his ability to just grind through. I mean, I keep going back to it, but I think the toughness aspect of Brendan Donovan is something that gets a little underrated as well. Remember a couple of years ago when the Cardinals were a bad team, he had a busted elbow and played through it as the designated hitter up until the trade deadline. And they said, Donnie, shut it down, man. Like, let's get you right
Donnie
for next season. Yeah, he was willing to keep playing, but they said, hey, we're going to sell off our assets. It's time for you to go get the procedure that's necessary, and we'll get you right for opening day of next year. He played through this year the toe issue that ultimately led to other things, and he kept going with that, even though they were not a very good baseball team. That's the kind of stuff that plays inside of a clubhouse, and people see that and they take notice of it. And so I'm sure that is informing some of what Kyle Gibson's saying there, where he's like, hey, you don't want to lose that. Having that guy inside of your clubhouse has real value. And I agree with him. It does have real value. I think having the pitching that you could get in return for Brendan Donovan,
has better value.
has more value, given where the Cardinals are right now in their building process. Ken Rosenthal was also on foul territory the other day, and he was asked about not only the future for Brendan Donovan, but in general, the Cardinals' immediate plans. Here's what he had to say.
I still see Seattle as the favorite, and the reason for that is their farm system is one of the best in the game. San Francisco is in the mix and has been for Donovan for quite some time, as Katie Wu reported, but their farm system is not very good at all, and they don't have much to give that the Cardinals would necessarily want. Then there is Kansas City. They've been kind of on the fringes of this thing the whole time. I don't see them necessarily outbidding the Mariners, but they do have some interesting young pitching in particular. So those are the teams, and I do believe he'll get dealt. And the idea of Nootbaar and Donovan together to Seattle, I could see that being a possibility.
I saw some, and this might be fans on social media, but it was some type of Mariners thing that said that they were sniffing around JoJo Romero.
That was a real report, yeah.
So if the Mariners not only want Donovan but are interested in Nootbaar and Romero, package it all together and get the best assets you can acquire. Go out there and get their top pitching prospect on top of their top hitting prospect and just ship all three of those pieces there. Like, if the Mariners are this interested in Brendan Donovan and they want more, great. Package more together. That's the team that you just need to pull the trigger on with right now.
Yeah, I like the idea of packaging JoJo potentially with a Donovan if that's what helps get the deal across the finish line to get better prospects, like you pointed out with the Seattle Mariners, because right now, clearly they're hesitant on putting somebody in a package. But if you go to them and say, hey, you want a left-handed reliever that can be your setup guy? Because I don't think Seattle's got a good left-handed reliever that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe you get that across. And the reason I'm more open to doing that than saying, like, hey, trade JoJo by himself, I don't know that he carries a ton of value by himself, because you don't typically see, and I think I mentioned this earlier this week, you don't typically see setup guys, and really left-handed specialists more so, I would say, is what JoJo is than just a true setup guy, that are rentals that get traded in the offseason. And if you do see bullpen arms with rentals that get moved, it's typically closers. And even with Devin Williams, like, the Brewers really didn't get a ton of great value in that return for Devin Williams, because those guys are more sought at the deadline. And when we do see bullpen arms get moved, it's because they have multiple years of control and teams think they could be a part of their bullpen long term. That's why I'm okay with saying, you know what, if Seattle has interest in both JoJo and Brendan Donovan, okay, package him together and see if that helps up the ante on Seattle to maybe then get it across the finish line to include whatever prospect it is that they are hesitant on. It's not so much because they're willing to do it because JoJo is in it, but it's because there's just more added value with JoJo in it.
Yeah, JoJo is a good player. And so when you add him into a deal like this, and there are very few pivot points for teams now, now you're getting to the place where Heim can actually make some moves. This is now that Bichette has signed, now that Bregman has signed, now that Kyle Tucker has signed. Those were the players that were blocking the market potentially for both Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar. And now that the Toronto Blue Jays know, all right, we have nowhere else we can turn for an outfielder. Maybe they are a team that emerges as a Lars Nootbaar suitor. Maybe the same thing could be true for the Seattle Mariners. The left-handed relief market has mostly been picked over at this point. Maybe somebody is also interested in bringing in JoJo Romero. Second base market, there's not a whole lot out there any longer. Maybe a team decides, all right, our pivot point is going to the Cardinals for Brendan Donovan. I could see one or three, as many as three, as few as one of those guys traded at some point within the next week or so.
Where are you guys at on Nootbaar being traded? Because I actually think it's fairly low. I don't doubt that there are teams interested in Nootbaar. I think Heim wants to wait until he can maybe get value back on Nootbaar, if that makes sense. Because, like, right now, if you're a team going to the Cardinals, yeah, you like Nootbaar. You're also offering low because Nootbaar can't walk right now because he had surgery on both his heels.
If I could put him in a package deal and get two of the best prospects on a team, I'm fine with it.
I just don't. I don't have a good sense of how baseball values him.
I don't
right
think
now.
he's going to get back to a
know.
value that you thought he was 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, I agree with that, but I think he can still get back to where he would carry decent value for a team to give up something of meaning
But
at
I'm
the
also
deadline.
taking a chance of him being injured again this year,
That's
and he's
fair.
getting another year older, another year closer to getting paid more money. I'd send him out right now if there's a team that wants him. Like I said to you yesterday, a package of Ryan Sloan and Laz Montez from the Seattle Mariners for Newt Barr and Donovan and JoJo. It's like, pull that off. That's one of their, if not their top pitching prospect, and then their top or second best position player prospect. Like, that's the deal that you should pull off, and I'd have no hesitation with that.
I feel about Newt the way that it seems like a lot of people feel about Donovan. I'm fine with keeping him and waiting until the deadline to get the best possible return. I'm also fine with moving him right now. I don't have a real strong opinion one way or the other. That one to me really does depend on what the return is, because I think there is upside to potentially get more at the deadline because of the way that last season went for him than what you would get right now. Whereas with Donnie, I don't see a scenario in which you're getting more at the deadline than you would today.
Yeah.
I think today is when you could maximize the asset. So to me, and I know the Fast Lane talked about this yesterday, they disagreed with my opinion on the matter. That's totally cool. Reasonable minds can disagree. To me, you either extend him this offseason or you trade him this offseason. And I don't really see a third option for the Cardinals that would make a whole lot of sense to me. Coming up next, Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joins us here on BK and Ferrario.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 2007 in the Honda Center, the Blues would hand the Anaheim Ducks their 10th loss of the season. A 6-2 final score in a game where we saw 40 power play minutes dished out. The Blues would score the first 5 goals. Eric Brewer on the power play, Peter Chyanik, Doug Waite, Keith Tkachuk, and Jamal Mayers shorthanded. Anaheim would get 2 in the third, but Dallas Drake with a shorthanded empty netter capped off the victory.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
Hey, Blues fans, ready to take your excitement to the next level? BetMGM is now available in Missouri, so shoot your shot with an official sports betting partner of the St. Louis Blues. Discover exciting Blues matchups by downloading the BetMGM app and getting instant access to a variety of parlay selection features and live betting options. Enjoy same-game parlays, boosted odds specials, the best daily promotions in the business, and so much more when you sign up. The chase is on for the next Stanley Cup, so get hyped for Blues action all season long with an official sports betting partner of the St. Louis Blues. BetMGM is now available in Missouri. Sign up today. BetMGM. Make it legendary. BetMGM and GameSense remind you to play responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. Missouri only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Please gamble responsibly.
Hey, when you get a 4.8 Google rating for any business, you know that you are doing one thing right, and that is taking care of your customer. That's exactly what Classic Air Care does. Log on to ClassicAirCare.com. Check out the different comments being left by customers that have been happy with the service. It's hard to get a Google rating that high, but you have to work to get it, and that's exactly what they do. When you hear about a customer saying, my air conditioning went out the day after Thanksgiving, and they were there within 24 hours to help get me back up and running, that's the kind of service you can expect from Classic Air Care. They've got over 100 vans on the road. They can typically get to you within 24 hours. And on top of that, they've got after-hour call service available as well. So if something goes down tonight at 10 o'clock, pick up the phone, call Classic Air Care. That's right. I said pick up the phone and call them and make sure that you get a hold of them. You can also book appointments online at ClassicAirCare.com. It's a simple process. It's an easy process, and you're going to get that amazing service. Again, over 100 vans on the road. You've recognized them, the orange ones with the penguin on it. They will get to your house to make sure that your house is comfortable. I rely on them. You can rely on them as well. That's why I tell you about them each and every week right here on 101. It's Classic Air Care. Book an appointment online at ClassicAirCare.com.
101 ESPN has your shot to score an autographed puck by Blues defenseman Justin Falk. Enter to win that Justin Falk signed puck right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app, powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Everything St. Louis Blues as we head into the Blues booth on 101 ESPN. Presented by Boardwalk Hardwood Floors. Find your perfect new floor at BoardwalkHardwood.com.
One on BK. Got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live at the ENB Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. Blues back in action this evening against the Tampa Bay Lightning at home at Enterprise Center. Kerbs, appreciate you hopping on with us today. Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joining us now. How's your voice holding up, my friend?
BK, we're doing good. I hope I have as much luck as Alex to call that many goals tonight as he did filling in for me in the second period during that last game. But, yeah, rested it a little bit, which is good. I kind of surprised with as much as was getting passed around the house for as long as it was that it took me that long to come down with something. But good news is we kicked it pretty quick, I hope.
Have you considered just handing over second period responsibilities to Alex long term, considering they've been terrible in that scenario most of the season? And on Tuesday night, they outscored the Carolina Hurricanes, one of the best teams in the league, 3-0 in that period.
Listen, I don't believe that Bull Durham is a great work of fiction. I believe it to be a religious experience. And I've learned from Crash Davis that you never mess with a streak. And as soon as the Blues went up 3-0 and didn't give up a second period goal, I went right over to Alex and said, you got the third, young man. We're not messing with a streak there. So we got through that one. Yeah, I thought about it, but I don't know if that's going to work long term. So we're going to try to go back to some normal stuff tonight. But no, in all honesty, and I do mean this, listen, you guys know this. You guys see this because you work with them, and I'm going to make them blush a little bit. But the stuff behind the scenes for our broadcast that Alex does, that Jordan Deacon does, that Grant Francis does, it's second to none of any radio broadcast in the National Hockey League. And his play-by-play has gotten really, really good. So it's a relaxing thing to be able to hand it over to him when needed. But he's also earned that. So I appreciate the effort that he puts in.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, Kerbs. And the funny part is you weren't in the booth at this time, but after those goals were scored, I picked my stuff up and put it back in the area that I do pre and post in, just assuming you were doing the third. And Joey looked at me and he goes, "What are you doing? You're not going back to there for the third period." He's like, "Just sit on here. We'll tell Kerbs he's not doing it anymore." I didn't buy into it, but apparently he was right.
I said, nope. I like the way he was thinking. You know, it's one of listen, guys, as broadcasters, you know, you go into work every day and you talk into a microphone. You don't think much of it. And it was a number of years ago when, you know, I noticed over a while that once a year that it would happen where the voice would get real weak and I couldn't hit the range, couldn't call a goal. And that's when they found a polyp on the vocal cord. And so I had this surgery to fix it. But it's amazing, like you realize that muscle there, and sometimes kind of we take it for granted because it's simply talking. But, yeah, it made sense for me. I said, no, I don't feel like trying to strain this just to get a third period out. Alex, you're +3 on the night. Go to work.
Understandably so. And we'll see. You'll take the good luck the rest of the way, Kerbs. But on ice tonight, looks like Philip Broberg is going to be back in the lineup. And then, of course, they get the bad news about Robert Thomas being out for the next couple of weeks. What was your reaction when you saw both of those kind of roster moves announcement by the Blues?
Well, not shocked at all on the Robert Thomas front. I think he really tried to battle for a few games since that Colorado game. And, man, I give him all the credit in the world. These players are so dang tough what they try to put up with. But that injury just kind of kept re-aggravating himself. So hopefully it is just a couple weeks for him, and he's good to go. Very encouraging news that it's a short-lived time away from the game for Philip Broberg. Got to be nice to have that young DNA that helps you recover quicker. Jim Montgomery called him a game-time decision. But if he is good to go, he's going to play everything points to him playing. So at least I'm going to prepare today as if he is playing. That I think is some great news. And, you know, guys, I've shifted some of my focus, to be fair and honest with you, onto just watching how these guys continue to handle big moments against big matchups like Dvorsky's going to get an opportunity tonight to do, and things like that. It's Snuggerud, who's got, 34 shot attempts here in the last 4 games, and 18 shots on goal. Like, I'm going to continue to watch how this goes because it's going to really tell you, more about the next few years for the Blues rather than this one that we're going in. So tough news on Robert Thomas. Good news is it's not long-term, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Chris Kerber is the voice of the Blues joining us here on 101 ESPN. Some news to pass along real quick before we get to the Blues with Kerbs. Free agent catcher JT Realmuto, according to Ken Rosenthal, close to re-signing with the Phillies. So the Mets pivot immediately after Kyle Tucker signs with the Dodgers. They go out and sign Bo Bichette. The Phillies then pivot to missing out on Bo Bichette by re-signing their own guy. It sounds like they are close to a deal with JT Realmuto. All right, Kerbs, I would get called out by our audience if I didn't ask you about the information that I presented to Alex earlier today.
Well, I didn't ask because I'm paid by the Blues, obviously, according to our listeners. So
I did want to pass this along.
Hey, great response, by the way. Until I went to listen. Most of the fans out there, they don't even have enough courage to put their own name on their own Twitter or Instagram account, and yet they think that they're going to have the cojones to sit in there and they'll ask the tough question. Yeah, okay. Right, yeah. Be my guest. I'd love to see one of them show up and actually try it.
For what Kerbs is referencing, like I hit my breaking point the other day, which I don't like to do most times than not, but I hit my breaking point because somebody tweeted out and essentially said it was Blues Reactor Big Blue Head Blues on social media.
Don't give him the notoriety.
He said, I'm convinced I could be an NHL broadcaster or a team's beat writer. By the way, he misspelled team's beat writer that asks softball questions and repeat the most obvious things over and over. And I finally hit my point, and I said, I assume you're just going to walk right in and hold teams accountable. Sorry, had to hit it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, here's the thing, and I mean this. I mean this quite sincerely. If you listen to a game and you hear us say, this guy with the puck, turnover, this guy with the puck, turnover, this guy with the puck, turnover, right? And you're not a smart enough fan, to realize that guy's having a bad game, I can't help you. I can't help you, right? I mean, I made the decision a long time ago. We are not going to broadcast these games in crayon for the lowest common denominator. All right, like we're actually going to talk the sport and broadcast the sport for actually smart people that can actually think. And if all you're looking for is for somebody to just get ripped up to shreds, and you can't handle the truth, of certain scenarios that sometimes young players take time to grow, you can say this guy's having a bad season without actually getting all personal with it. If that's not you, well, I can't help you. I just say, go back to bed and start your day over.
Mic drop.
Okay, so BK, what were you about to say?
Yeah, so
go ahead, BK.
Rusty Shackelford on the text line. chiming in. Media in this town is soft with 7 exclamation marks.
There it is. He's one of the
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
All right, Curb. So here is my soft question for the voice of the Blues.
Hey, did Rusty Shackelford put his name on his text? No.
Rusty Shackelford, of course.
Obviously, his name's Rusty Shackelford.
To be fair, I do have his phone number. So,
and I'm sure his profile on his social media account, Curbs, will say, "Be nice to people."
All right.
Nothing like the cowardly anonymous.
So, Curbs, I did a little research earlier today, and I'm curious, just as I give you this information, your takeaway from it, because I had one. I'm curious where you would go with this. The Blues right now are tied for the worst goal differential in the NHL. They're at a -44 through the first 47 games. So I wanted to look at, okay, when you look back at the last 15 years or so of NHL history, how do teams that have a similar or worse goal differential to where the Blues are at this point in the season, how do they do both the rest of that season and also the following year? What does this portend for future performance? And the answer is no teams with a goal differential this bad at this point in the season in the past 20 years ultimately made it to the playoffs. The most points by a team in that stretch was the 2010 Devils, who finished with 81. For context, the Blues have only had one season in the last 20 years. The Blues have not finished with fewer than 80 points in a season since 2008. So this would be a pretty historically bad year by their standards if they follow history. Beyond that, it's not just that season, which you'd expect is bad at this point of the season. They continue to be bad the rest of the way. There are only 25 teams in the last 15 years that had this kind of a goal differential at this point in the season. Of those 25, only 4 the next season had at least 80 points. So most of them followed that year up with another really bad season the next year. And my question off of this that we talked about earlier today with Alex, and I'm curious your thoughts, Curbs. Sorry for the long-winded question. What does that say for the Blues' plans? Should that influence the way that they currently view the roster for now, and also for the way that they are preparing to build the next core of the team?
I think it's actually a great question, but I think it's a question that is a good question, irrespective of the goal differential stat. Having said that, I think I'd be willing right now. I'd say I'll bet you $100 right now that next year the Blues will have more than 80 points. Okay, despite that, that's what I believe with the quality of the coaching and the pieces that the team has. This was a season that just got off on the wrong foot, guys, and that's what the Blues have to figure out or try to understand or dig a little deeper into why. Was it something systemic? Was it something in training camp? Was it something that's easily fixable, or is it roster? And I think, like everything, we're going to find that it's a little mix of both. To me, BK, what's going to dictate that is, okay, if Doug Armstrong, with the way that we know he's done things, and in this case alongside with Alexander Steen, and keep in mind, Doug still remains president of hockey operations for 3 years after this, so it's not like he's not going to have a say in things. To me, it's what moves happen now. Okay, so if they decide that this year, okay, there's some offers coming in, and they decide to do they make a franchise shifting kind of trade? Now, the results may not be the exact same thing, but do they do something where the Florida Panthers are trading a Huberdeau and a Weegar, right? Because they just didn't like it. Have they seen enough, even with young players, to sit there and say, some of that got people we thought were going to be the core, we move them. And you look at that, and so it's a difficult answer to give you, because I think a lot is going to be determined over the next few weeks coming out of the break and leading up to the trade deadline. I do believe, though, that the one fundamental thing is not going to change, and that is where they are with the core of guys like Snuggerud and Stenberg, right, and Hofer and guys like that. And so the question is then how, if they do make some moves of bigger names, how do they surround those guys? That's going to dictate the future more than anything. But to me, that's a scenario that's really irrespective of the minus goal differential, right? Because there are other metrics that I think that are going to play along the same lines of the one that you mentioned up there. So,
sure.
I think if you're a St. Louis Blues fan right now, I mean, that's the curiosity. You know, for example, if you decided to move a Braden Shen, well, you're moving a culture piece, you know. But at this point in time, you look and say, okay, we might have to slow things down a little bit, and we're going to do that for him. So he has a chance later in his career to maybe go win again, you know, if it's not going to happen here, right? Or is there a move like Florida made where you do trade a key piece, but you get something back that allows you to stay right in the trajectory that you're building towards? And I don't have the exact answer to that. I just know that that's the challenge that faces Doug Armstrong and Alexander Steen.
If I can ask a follow-up question on that, Curbs, because I don't ask tough questions very often. If they were to try and make that move, as soft as Cardinal apparently, if they were to make that Florida Panthers move where they ship out core pieces of their roster, not knowing what comes back in return, would you label that the team is in a rebuild?
We've already been in it. Like, you can rename it whatever it is, a retool, a rebuild. It's still a little bit of a rebuild. We've already been in it. So it just depends on, you know, did you take a step forward? Did you take a step back? Look, guys, you know, you're going through the rebuild coming out of 05, 06 when there was a hell of a lot less in the cupboard than what you have now. And you got to the playoffs on a great second half in 09, just like you did last year. Well, you missed in 2010. Guess what happened in 2010 with the 13th overall pick? You found a Jaden Schwartz. And then the guy you just drafted in David Rundblad, you moved him to Ottawa and you drafted a Tarasenko. And there you had two key pieces of a Stanley Cup championship. The one thing the St. Louis Blues have not had is many high draft picks like all these other teams you're competing with. And that still includes the Edmonton Oilers and the Colorado Avalanche and the Florida Panthers, right? It just hasn't been there in the last 15 years. So if they struggle a little bit and end up with another one of those, that's not a bad thing. I mean, that little step back from 09 to remember, they missed the next 2 years, but they got key pieces that eventually led to a Stanley Cup championship with quality players. So I think I don't know if you're stepping into a rebuild. I think you're continuing in that reprocess, and it's just part of the process. It's hard adjustments to make. Guys, you're predicting futures of people. It's not easy to do, and you hope you get more right than you get wrong.
Mm-hmm. People get paid millions of dollars to try to do so. The one place where I would
and they get it wrong.
More often than not. That's the hard part, right? The one place where I would wonder though, Curbs, like you mentioned the Florida Panthers, they were a team that was coming off of the President's Trophy when they made that kind of a trade, as opposed to the Blues, who are coming off of, I mean, probably this year their worst season in 15 years. You know, that's a pretty sizable.
Listen, no doubt.
Situations.
But that's why I'm not comparing apples to apples there. I'm comparing scenarios of a franchise-altering trade. Okay,
sure.
So if you thought, hey, the core of this team, you know, for the next few years is going to be Thomas, Kyrou, Buchnevich, Parayko, Broberg, you know, Holloway, and you still kept, and you still think part of that core, because we're going to come out of it, is going to be a Shen and a Bennington, right, and a Falk. Okay. Well, if one of those veteran players were to get moved now, you know, because you're just not quite there, and it adjusts how you looked at it, right? Again, that could be franchise altering. What won't make a ton of sense to me, guys, is say moving any player, well, not any player, but moving certain sought after players for just draft picks that are not going to impact you for another 5 years, right? You know, like somewhere you've got to find some hockey trades in there where it's the Eric Johnson for Shattenkirk and Stewart kind of trades, and see if those exist. Because again, that's how you advance your team, and we'll see if that kind of thing happens.
Chris Kerber is the voice of the Blues. You'll hear him on the call tonight as the Blues take on the Tampa Bay Lightning, a team that is on quite the run right now. We'll see if the Blues are able to put an end to that as they take on the Lightning at Enterprise Center this evening. You'll hear the call right here on 101 ESPN. Curbs, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk with you again next week.
All right, fellas. Have an awesome day. See ya.
Yeah, same to you. That's Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues, joining us here on 101 ESPN. I could have gone another 15 minutes with Curbs. We just don't have the time, unfortunately, to go back and forth on some of that
each hour.
That's it's frowned upon, but it is what it is. It's a Friday.
Is throwing paper back in the studio.
We're having a good time. Coming up next, we're going to get into some NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
The Redbird Report. Your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com. Because Blues hockey can be heard exclusively on 101 ESPN. Get the info you need before and after every Blues game with a First Community pre- and post-game show. First Community Credit Union.
Take your best shot with First Community and presented by Scott Lee Heating Company and Urban Chestnut Brewing Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Divisional round drawing closer. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tomorrow, the divisional round will kick off at 3:30 on 101 ESPN with Buffalo visiting top-seeded Denver. NFC-wise, Seattle hosting San Francisco in primetime. Seahawks QB Sam Darnold's oblique injury has him listed as questionable. 6+ hours from now, Blues Lightning puck drop happens right here. St. Louis must face Atlanta leading Tampa Bay minus Robert Thomas, which makes Jim Montgomery's task that much tougher.
We're going to get one of the elite teams in the league, a team that really, when we were in Tampa Bay, I think the score was 4-1. But, you know, they were quite a bit ahead of us as far as competitive level. So we really want to make sure that our compete level tomorrow is where it needs to be to give ourselves a good opportunity at success.
This Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
Let's dive into some NFL quick hitters. A few different things that I wanted to get into before we get into the junk drawer on the other side. T-Bone, you mentioned this before the show today. Mary Kay Cabot has reported that the Browns have announced their next round of interviews with at least one of the potential top candidates for the job. That candidate is defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz, who is potentially in the running to be the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Alex, he's done a good job as their DC. Generally speaking, he's been a really bad head coach in the NFL.
But let's go back into the way back tank and remember what he was prior to a DC.
He was not good as the head coach of the Detroit Lions. What would you make of this hire?
It makes sense that the Browns are hiring this. This should not be your head coach hire if you're the Cleveland Browns. And I know that the well is pretty dry in terms of valued head coaches that you think can make a difference. Do something different other than this. Take a chance on it. This isn't taking a chance on a guy. This is resorting back to, well, we know he's got experience. You don't become a better head coach after being a defensive coordinator for a long amount of time. Maybe some guys can, but T-Bone has brought this up before. I think some guys are just good coordinators. Keep him as the defensive coordinator. The Browns obviously have had a defense that at least is tolerable. That is not the guy that is going to unlock the potential of Shedeur Sanders and open up your offense. So this, to me, that's a Cleveland Browns move.
And it feels kind of telling that, we see this a bunch where like Todd Bowles, for example, right? Was the head coach of the Jets, fails, gets fired, becomes a DC, and then gets hired 3 years later. Okay, isn't it telling that the rest of the NFL hasn't hired him since his last stop ended in 2013? It's been 13 years. I was in high school at that point. Yeah. I think that's very telling, and I don't understand it because it feels like it's probably just a hire to be a stopgap, do what the Texans did with Lovie Smith, where you hire him for a year just to fire him at the end of the year and go hire because you don't like the cycle. But if that was the case, why not just stick with Stefanski? Why do I need to pay two coaches not to coach for me if this is the scenario? Maybe because they thought Stefanski would win them 5 games and that would be too good. I don't fully get what the plan is. It just feels like, I think Alex said it perfectly, they're an incompetent organization. It's the Cleveland Browns.
I don't get it at all. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Adam Schefter reporting the Giants and John Harbaugh still working through the details of his contract. It is not done yet. The final issues aren't over money. It's over the language. Quote, there's no derailment and nothing has changed, one source told Adam Schefter. Talks continue. The two sides are working toward a deal to get it across the finish line. Saw an update on this earlier today that was basically this, hey, it's not done officially with John Harbaugh and the Giants. I thought it was announced yesterday that this was basically done. So I'd expected to get across the finish line, but it is strange that they haven't been able to get there just yet.
Joe Sheehan sitting in the corner. No, I don't want to put it in the contract. No. I'm still making roster decisions.
It's the Mara family that's apparently holding this up. We'll see where it ends up going. Last thing that I wanted to get to, good piece earlier today from Mike Sando over on The Athletic on the most defense-driven teams to reach the Super Bowl in the last 25 years. Number one on this list was the 2015 Broncos. This was the team that ultimately got there with Peyton Manning at the end. That Von Miller was the driving force. The 0-2 Bucks, T-Bone, you probably don't remember them, but that was the Rondé Barber, John Lynch, Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks defense that won the Super Bowl that year. Unbelievable unit. Others that are on this list include the 2008 Steelers that we talked about in the past, the 2006 Bears that made it with Rex Grossman. The Ravens are not on this list.
They were kind of at the end with Ray Lewis when they got there.
Yeah, but I thought that, Flacco was
I think their offense was a little better.
Was it?
Yeah.
Man, I thought I remembered that defense being great.
The Broncos had the 25th ranked offense. The Bucs were 23rd. The Steelers were 21st. The Bears were 20th. The reason I bring this up, we have some teams this year that would be pretty similar. The Texans are 24th offensively and 3rd on defense. The Seahawks 18th offensively, 1st on defense. You think we could see a team this year, especially those two, Texans and Seahawks, where it is the defense that is remembered that ultimately got them there?
Yeah, I think so. And if I had to put money on it, it would most likely be the Seahawks. And the only reason I'm not saying the Texans is because I think they have a tougher path to get to that Super Bowl. Even with how elite their defense is, I still think Josh Allen is just a difference maker regardless of the defense. I'd pick the Seahawks because their path includes the Rams, who they've seen already, and I think they can beat. The Bears, if for some reason they get past that, and then maybe one of their toughest battles in the Seahawks or in the 49ers. So I think so. I think it would be the Seahawks or the Texans. Those would be my two picks.
Somebody on the text line brings up the 2000 Ravens. This only goes back to 2002, so that's why that
I was thinking of the most
Ravens
recent
team,
Ravens
is not a part of it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely possible we could see it because I don't think we've got good enough offenses to pick apart these good defenses, right? Who's the offense that you really truly trust that would pick apart the Seahawks? It's probably just the Rams, right? And if you're saying the Bills, let's be honest, you're really just saying because it's Josh Allen. It's not really the entire offense. I think it's definitely possible, and I think it is probably the Seahawks as well. I agree with Alex because, one, I do agree, probably a little bit easier of a path for them, but also, they are truly the team that when we would talk about them in 10 years, for example, it wouldn't be, Sam Darnold, JSN. You would forget who the quarterback was. We said Peyton Manning right off the bat, right, for the Broncos. It's because it was Peyton Manning, even though he was 40, but you still remember as Peyton Manning. Stroud would carry a little bit of, I think, recognition.
Ben Roethlisberger. It would be the 08 Steelers. That would be the comp for that one.
Yeah,
to your point, I don't even remember who that Buccaneers quarterback was in 02. I had to Google it.
Brad Johnson?
I forgot.
And the reason I don't know if Stroud would fall into this if they were to win it.
You had Rex Grossman with the Bears. Yep. 10, you had
and that feels Sam Darnold-y.
Ben with the Steelers. 2013 would have been Russell Wilson with the Seahawks. They're on this list. Russell Wilson would probably be a good comp, honestly, for CJ Stroud. 07 Giants is Eli Manning. I think there's some similarities there to some of these quarterbacks.
That might be more the Stroud one because Stroud was a top 2 pick, too. And Manning was as well, right, if I'm not mistaken. That's the difference with Russ.
Panthers, I think, was Jake Delhomme. So that would be probably a pretty good comparison for Sam Darnold, for example.
I wouldn't have remembered Jake Delhomme.
Yeah.
2012 Ravens, by the way. They're on this list with
that was the Flacco
with Joe Flacco.
That was the team that I remember. Now I remember Ray Lewis. That was his last year, I don't remember. I remember the offense had Anquan Bolden, but I just remember.
He was old too at that point.
And I think it was Ray Rice at the time was their running back still, but their defense was just freaking so difficult to deal with.
618 says, in a weird way, I feel like the recent KC team should actually be on that list. They are. The 2023 Chiefs are on this list. I think they're 10th.
Yeah, but nobody's talking about them because they had, Patrick Mahomes.
It speaks to, so the way they ranked this is where the offense is compared to the defense and then the difference between the two. The most defensive-driven teams of the last, 24 years in the NFL. And so the biggest margin between the two was the 2015 Broncos. There are only 6 teams on this list, though, that had a greater than 10 difference between the two. So like the 2013 Seahawks were 11th in offense, which is a pretty decent offense, first in defense, and that's top 6 among this group.
To the Texers' point of the Chiefs that did fall on here, you brought this up when they were winning that Super Bowl. We're always going to remember Mahomes, just like we always remember Brady. What we always forget, though, about Brady is it was Tom Brady. He had an incredible defense with him for one of those runs.
The 03 Patriots are on this list.
Exactly.
16th in the NFL in offense, second defensively.
We never talk about them being the driving force of winning that Super Bowl. We always go, they had Tom Brady. He won 7 rings. Of course,
that first 3 out of 4, that first dynasty for the Patriots was defense driven.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That was about Bill Belichick. Now, the more recent runs that they went on, basically the second half of their dynasty, that was about Brady. That was about the offense and what they brought to the table. And then some great defensive game plans by Belichick as well. But those first 4 seasons, 2001 to 2004, I mean, one of his game plans is in the Hall of Fame for what they were able to do against the greatest show on turf for a reason.
Oh,
there's that too.
The real game plan. Him. That was Brady's,
All the gates back there.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, time for the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
Do you have what it takes to beat the Blues? Tune into BK and Ferrario every Thursday for your shot to take out a member of your St. Louis Blues. And you can win a signed puck and tickets to an upcoming game. Learn more at 101ESPN.com. from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the ENB Granite Studios. You're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, I've got a question for you.
A brief pause makes me a little concerned.
I thought he had nothing for the junk drawer.
No,
we were all going to be looking at each other like.
Coming up next. No, the brief pause always worries me. It's something that either is controversial or going to make me upset.
No. I'm just curious.
That was the controversial part.
I just got a text on this, and I'm curious your thoughts on it.
Okay.
It is sports related, so we're going to kind of go down the sports path today. As a fan, how do you react when you start to come to the realization, hey, something that you already saw might be the best you ever see for your favorite team? It may never get better than that. I got a text from somebody that said, what if 2023 was the high water mark for the Mizzou Tigers? What if they don't end up improving from that? And that was the best it gets. And unfortunately, you were the year before the playoff expanded when you got to that point. So you didn't end up reaching the playoffs. You had unbelievable moments that season. It was a really, really excellent year. You got to see Luther Burden take it to the next level. Offense was great. All of these different things, right? It's a great season, but you didn't really reach anything of meaning that year. It ended with a Cotton Bowl victory that people poo-poo on for good reason because Ohio State didn't bring their roster that year.
Win the big game.
So what if you come to the realization, and it may not be the case for Mizzou, but just as an example, what you've already seen, which was good, but not the pinnacle, that may be the best you get to see. How's that feel as a fan?
I don't know, but damn, dude.
Yeah. I wonder why you were quiet during the commercial break. I don't really think about it in the past. Now,
glass half full, glass half empty.
Which is weird, but the reason I don't really think about it, I think college would be more different. So that, maybe it's a little different with college.
Yeah.
Because it's very possible I've seen the best of Illinois.
I was about to say, what if Illinois just doesn't ever do it?
Last year was your best year.
Yeah. Oh, God. That last year was frustrating. But
no, I meant the year prior.
The reason that I don't really think about it is because I more look forward to what it's going to look like again the next time around. And then is that the team that ends up being even better than the one that I remember?
That's at least in pro sports for me.
Yeah, and maybe that's why I was thinking of it that way. Because pro sports, that's the case, right? Nothing's going to top it doesn't feel like it right now. Man, that 2011 run, that was awesome for the Cardinals, wasn't it? 2013, they were in the World Series, and nothing much after 2015, right? And you think back on those times of boy, wasn't that fun? Or 2022. Who would have thought that was the best of the Goalie Arenado era for the Cardinals? But I don't really look back on it and go, I do say, yeah, man, they missed their opportunity, but I'm not sad about it. I'm more okay, I can't wait to see what Chaim Bloom's able to build in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know me. Every year I tell you the Blues are going to be a serious contender. But to think about it in that perspective, pre-COVID was the last time I saw the peak of the Blues, right? With the exception of last year, which even last year it was are we really witnessing
At least though they got the cup. Right, so you saw them at the pinnacle of the sport. There is nothing more there to accomplish. T-Bone brought up a good example with Illinois. What if Illinois never gets further than the Elite Eight? What if that's it? And in the next 20 years, they have really good seasons, unbelievable moments, great rosters. You have all of these memories of the teams, but they're never able to go further. And we look back and we're like, damn, that loss that they had against UConn, where they had Terrence Shannon that season, that was it. That was as good as it was going to get for Illinois basketball.
Yeah,
and I was curious about it because, college sports is where this really exists.
You actually brought the one up where I'm not concerned that that's potentially the best of the years. Because Illinois basketball to me is always going to be a team that's probably a contender. Maybe they don't get better than the Elite Eight. I don't know. I mean, they've been able to do it with multiple coaches now at this point. They've become kind of a blue blood of college basketball. Football's the one where I could really hear the argument of hey, what if they're never better than what Brett Bielema was able to do the last 2 years, right?
I guess Mizzou basketball would be this for us back when they
08-09 when they went to the NCAA tournament, got to the Elite Eight.
Yeah. But I still seem to think you know what? Maybe for some reason I'm the most positive of the group of this segment. for some reason, maybe there is another coach out there that can do what Bielema's done or what Underwood has done, and they'll be able to get the program even better. I mean, poor Underwood. I mean, that was a UConn buzzsaw that he ran into.
I feel like because on the college side, I don't have as much passion towards a team like you guys do. Sure. Like Mizzou is the team that I watch the most because it's localized, but I didn't attend Mizzou. Like I'm not a diehard fan. So that it's hard for me to look at it that way because my teams are just the pro level to where college is realistically, it could suck for the next 50 years. You could die before you see that team have any success.
So they said you never know what you had until it's gone. Yeah, it really does apply in this.
Think about what Indiana fans thought before the Cicchetti era.
Yeah.
Boy, are we ever...
That's the sweet spot as a fan.
Was 6 wins of bowl eligibility the best we ever had? Are we looking back on the good
Think about Arkansas fans. Arkansas fans haven't really reached a high point since they had the motorcycle incident. You look at South Carolina. I mean, they have not been able to reach back to what they were in the Spurrier era, which was nearly a decade ago now. And that's a good football program. They've had some success in the last 20 years, and they have a great fan base, and their stadium is amazing. The in-game experience is fantastic. They've got a good recruiting base there. They just haven't been able to get back to where they once were. So somebody texted me that. I was curious your guys' thoughts on it.
Tell that individual to brighten up a little bit more going into the weekend?
I mean, I think it's a fair question to ask. Like, what if Mizzou was at the front end of all of the NIL era, which they were, and they took advantage of what was in front of them, and these other big boy programs took them a little while to get up and running at the way and to get everything aligned the way that Mizzou had it at the time. So Mizzou was in, and Drinkwitz deserves a lot of credit for this. They were a cutting-edge team when it came to NIL and transfer portal era. And they set things up for guys like Luther Burden. And they went to the portal and they got guys like Theo Weiss. And they were able to take advantage defensively of what was out there for them. So they were at the front end of all of these things. And they got this really high-level team that they could put on the field. And now maybe some of those players that they had access to, teams like Texas and Florida and Miami and Ohio State and everybody else, they're now up and running to the point where they're getting access to those same players. And just something
was Mizzou curious about. Early Mo Cardinals? Is that what we just found out?
Or like the Tampa Bay Rays, right? Like the Rays had exploited the pitching in side of things, and now everybody else, like the Dodgers, just do the things that the Rays did.
The thing that we find most, I guess, when you see these big runs or these surprise runs, I guess you could call it, is there's something that they do that nobody else does, right? They find that competitive edge. For Mizzou, you mentioned it was the portal. For the Cardinals, it was developing an incredible pitching pipeline. Same with the Rays. The Dodgers one's like not repeatable by anybody, but that's what happens. Sad.
From the 314, let's be a little more positive. Realize Mizzou is going to go on a run and be in their best next year.
11-1,
with Austin Simmons. That's the thing. Maybe none of this matters. They got the quarterback position right, and they go 12-0 next season. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, is there a little piece of you that's excited to watch what the Dodgers are about to put on the field next year? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
Didn't think we'd talk about that today.
This is Justin Falk, and it's game day on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN.
Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate arena.
Tanner Hendrickson here in the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Kicks off tomorrow. 4 games this weekend, and DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Looking ahead to this weekend, I'm going to go to that San Francisco-Seattle game. Look, I don't think we're going to see Seattle or San Francisco be able to compete in this game. I love Seattle on the spread. I'm going a JSN touchdown catch as well, and I think Darnold has a decent game as well. I'm going to take him for 200-plus passing yards in this contest. And get this, with DraftKings, they've got your back all postseason long with early exit protection. So if you have a player in your eligible NFL prop bet, like I've got 2 in Darnold and JSN, if they go down at any point in the first half, you still get paid in cash. With DraftKings, they've got you covered through the entire half. Why bet your player props anywhere else? And if you're thinking, man, I don't got a great read on that football game just yet, well, wait till they get going, because DraftKings got live betting options so they can keep you in the moment all postseason long. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code TANNER, that's code TANNER, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Call 1-800-GAMBLES, physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and supply. Bet must win to receive 7 days. Additional terms, dng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN.
It's time for our NFL weekend look ahead. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK.
What happened to the Dodgers talk, man?
It was 1 o'clock, and we're out at the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community
I don't want
Ice
to talk
Center.
about them. They're ruining baseball. We don't got to talk about it anymore.
That was an easy segment. No, I'm not excited. Now to the NFL.
In all seriousness, we went long with Curbs anyways. We've had 2 very long blue segments today, so it's not the end of the world that we ended up being a little bit off clock. We got things figured out on the audio side of things, I think. And now we can go into our NFL weekend look ahead. Let's start out big picture. Last week was awesome, and we knew the wild card round had the potential to set up for some really high-level games. The lines were very close. Really, the one game that we weren't sure about over the weekend slate was Rams and Panthers, and it started off with a bang. I mean, that game could have gone the other direction, and a lot of us, our Super Bowl pick could have been out after the wild card round. So we thought it would be great, and it ultimately was. Do you have that same intrigue going into this weekend? Do you think it's going to be anywhere close to as good as the weekend that we just witnessed in the NFL?
I think so, because I think you're bringing in a little bit more competitive teams now, and I think there's going to be more anticipation for it in the actual on play. I mean, in every matchup, I think you have with the exception of the Rams and the Bears, you have a really good defense on one side of the football field. And I think that sets up for a lot of excitement. On the AFC side, you've got 2 quarterbacks that everybody is going to be glued to the television for. And on the NFC side, I think you've got a couple of teams that nobody expected to be in this position. So I think the intrigue is going to be there, and I think it will match with the on-field play.
I think so, too. And I think it's because there's just not definitely no doubt about it, great team in the playoffs on either side of the field, right? In years past, we've had that. Like, you think back to last year, I know they got pushed at this time, but the Eagles were by far the best team in the NFC, and you could tell. And in years past, it's been Mahomes is by far the best team in the NFL, or at least the best quarterback, and then he's got at least one tough test in the playoffs, typically Josh Allen. We don't have that this year. And I think outside of we knew for a fact that the Steelers were going to get killed, I thought the Panthers were going to keep that game close because they had just picked apart the Rams defense like 3 weeks prior to that. Outside of that, it was not a shock to me that all those first-round games are close, and I think they're all going to be close again because there's not a great team. These are all flawed football teams, and you can take advantage of those flaws.
I really like the way the first 3 games set up. The Bills versus the Broncos. Well, it's Josh Allen versus one of the best defenses in the NFL. The 49ers versus the Seahawks. Well, it's that Kyle Shanahan offense that it doesn't seem to matter who they have as long as Christian McCaffrey's in the game, including at the quarterback position this year, by the way. They put up points against anybody going up against that unbelievable Seahawks defense that is now well-rested as well. It's Drake May who put together maybe an MVP caliber season going up against a Texans defense that outscored the Steelers last week. Literally, the Texans defense outscored them. And then you have the final game, which is just, it could be fireworks with the Rams versus the Bears. It's 2 great offenses.
Yeah,
but the first 3 games
of the weekend
have a offense that is at least top 10 to top 5 in the league going up against a defense that might be the top 3 defenses in the NFL this season. So I think that sets up for some really compelling matchups. And then Rams-Bears, I agree with Alex. I think it has the potential to be the most exciting game of the week because of the explosive nature of that game. That being said, I don't know that it has quite the same juice as last week did. Last week felt as though there was upside and downside to a lot of these teams. Like the Eagles felt like a team that had the potential to flip the switch and go to the Super Bowl, or to completely crater, lose to a 49ers team that's completely hobbled right now and fire members of their staff, including potentially their head coach. We didn't get there, but they did fire their OC. The Packers. Upside was to potentially have like a surprise run to the NFC Championship game behind this offense. Downside is LaFleur going to be back next year? Bears. upside is to go on this year's version of the Commanders run. Downside is, all right, it was all smoke and mirrors, and they had to rely way too much on these comebacks in the late stages. This week, I don't see that downside for any of these teams. The stakes aren't quite as high, other than obviously just getting to the championship weekend, but it should be fun nonetheless.
I would push back a little bit on it. I don't think it's as high as it was last year, but I think it's kind of close because I think the 2 1 seeds, typically when we talk about the 1 seeds in the NFL, it's typically the team that gets to the Super Bowl, right? Like you look at the Chiefs when they would get it, we knew, they maybe get pushed once, but odds are we all would take them to get to the Super Bowl. Eagles were this last year because as much as we want to say about, hey, get in and anybody can win in the NFL, not really. Typically it's the 1 or 2 seed. These 1 seeds, man, have significant downsides to them, and it's at the quarterback spot. Those are great defenses. Sam Darnold could lose you a football game at any point, even against that banged up of a San Francisco 49ers team. Same can be said for Bo Nix. And I think the other thing, and that continues to be the juice for the Bills, okay, it's great you got Josh Allen. Worst roster Josh Allen's had by far.
No doubt.
And I know that they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. That defense is good. It's not as good as I think Denver's is. So is he going to be able to do this multiple times to be able to get over the hump? Or is he going to miss out on his best opportunity to potentially get to a Super Bowl? And then I agree, Rams and Bears and Texans and Patriots, I don't think they've got as good of storylines that are the highs and the lows for them. But I still think that is some fun to keep an eye on. That's 3 teams that I just mentioned there. And I think what's most intriguing about it, it's the 2 1 seeds that I brought up, who typically we don't even talk about till the Super Bowl.
That is an under-the-radar storyline going into the weekend, is the lack of faith that it seems as though a lot of people have in the number 1 seeds. And that's uncommon. And it speaks to they don't have the quarterbacks. People just don't trust, whether you agree with this or not, you can trust Bo Nix. And, hey, there's a lot of money to be made. They're a 1.5-point favorite this year against a Bills team that, as T-Bone said, is incredibly flawed. So if you think Bo Nix is better than the market suggests, dude, go bet on him. There's money there. The Seahawks, market's given them a lot of credit, but I think that's more for the 49ers injuries and what the Seahawks defense is. If you think that Sam Darnold is as good as apparently in your mind he is, do take the over or take the higher on some of his numbers over on the Underdog app. Don't forget to use our promo code BKO if you're new signing up to that, but it should be fun in that regard.
DraftKings has the best player props with early exit protection if he goes down in the first half. So use that promo code.
Quiet you.
Tanner.
Quiet you. It's promo code BKO on the Underdog app.
Do both. All right.
Thank you, Bradford.
Let's go through these games individually, give our quick previews. The first game is one of my favorite ones to watch. It is the Bills versus the Broncos. Broncos are a 1.5-point home favorite against the Bills. Bills basically are Josh Allen and the boys. The pass defense has been quite good this season. They're top 5 in the NFL, but the run defense has been awful. Are the Broncos capable of exploiting that? I don't know. They have not been very good in that regard. RJ Harvey, when I watch him, I'm like, hey, this guy's not bad. And then I look at the numbers. He's been terrible for the most part this season. Alex, how do you see this one going?
I think the Bills win this one. I don't want to say easily because I do believe what T-Bone said. Man, you got to go up against 2 really good defenses twice, and Josh Allen was banged up in that Jaguars game. What do you think is going to happen on this one? Because also what has not been good for the Bills has been the offensive line protecting Josh Allen. But I still think the Bills win this because Josh Allen's Superman this year. I would say the Bills cover too. I think this is a 3-point win, Buffalo, but it's going to be a tight football game.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth, and I'm settling on Bills as well. I think they pull off the upset. I do agree with you. I don't think it's going to be easy for them. I think this could be ugly, like 13-10 they win. But you mentioned the run defense. We brought this up after they won against Jacksonville. I don't see a team that's going to beat them on the run anymore. Maybe San Fran if they got to the Super Bowl, maybe the Bears if they got there. But I don't see anybody in the AFC that's going to take advantage of that. So that means I'm expecting Bo Nix to make plays against the Bills defense. No, I don't trust him. So I'm going to go with Josh Allen, who I trust. I think he does enough. I think Superman's the right term. So
we're on the same side here. I like the Bills as well. I think they win outright in Denver. It's not an easy place to play. The Bills are a little banged up, especially Josh Allen with the way that he had to go put his body on the line last week. I think we see more of the same this week. I think the pass rush will get to him, and I don't think things will be easy, but they ultimately get the win. 49ers traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. What an unbelievable year. What a ride this has been for San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan is arguably the coach of the year in my eyes. I think this is where it ends, though. Seattle's defense, I think, is good enough to ultimately come out with the victory. I don't think this is an overly high-scoring game either, but I think you see like 27-17 Seahawks win, and I do believe cover in this game.
Yep, I think Seahawks win this one, and I think it's going to not be easy, but I think by the fourth quarter, it's going to be obvious that the Seahawks are the better team.
Yeah.
I think the 49ers tank is going to be on E by the time. I know you said all they need to have is Christian McCaffrey, and you're right, they do, but losing George Kittle, McCaffrey can't be 100%. Your weapons have not been that great. If Fred Warner plays, then cool. They're going to have a little extra juice that Seattle's going to have to deal with. I think this one's done. I think this is like 27-32-10 by the end of it.
Yeah, this is my favorite pick of the week, picking Seattle. And I love them on the spread as well, so I'm with you. You can sweep it. I just don't think San Fran's got the horses to beat that good a defense.
Next one up, and we're going to talk to Mike McKenna coming up here in a little less than 10 minutes on BK and Ferrario. Texans are traveling to New England to take on the Patriots. Early in the week, I really wanted to take the Texans. I thought they would be able to do this, and I think that defense is going to give the Patriots a lot of trouble in this game, but it doesn't seem as though Nico Collins is going to be able to play for the Texans this weekend, and I think that's too much to overcome. I don't think their offense is going to have enough answers. I think the Patriots put up just enough points. Give me the Patriots in a really tight, contested game, low scoring, 20-16.
I have the Texans. What's the spread on this?
-3 in favor of the Patriots.
I would take the Texans +3. I think they win straight up. I think it's going to be low scoring, like you said. I agree having no Nico Collins is going to be a lot for them, but I think you're going to see a couple of other guys come up big for them. And as I've said all season, the Texans just need to make one play. And I think they'll be able to do that. I think the defense shuts down the Patriots. I think the Patriots score 10 points, maybe. And I think the Texans win 17-10, 20-10.
That offense really struggled last week against the Chargers. That Chargers defense presented some serious issues for them. And I do think that's something the Texans can exploit as well.
Yeah, I'm still going to go Patriots, though, even though I definitely got concerned after watching that game against the Chargers. I think they're going to – you mentioned the big play. I think it comes down to which quarterback makes the big play, because I don't think either teams are scoring a lot, especially since the Texans are without Nico Collins. And I'm going to trust the guy that played like an MVP in the regular season. So I'm going to go Drake May, and the Patriots win this one.
Last one on the slate is the Sunday night game. T-Bone, will start with you because you're a resident Rams fan. L.A. traveling to Chicago in a game where the low is expected to be roughly 2 degrees for the Rams versus the Bears. Rams are a 4.5-point road favorite in Chicago. How you feeling going into this one,
Not
T-Bone?
great. I think this is a Bears win.
Wow.
I think with the cold weather, it's going to make it hard to throw the football, and especially because I think it's supposed to be like 20-mile-an-hour winds, 30-mile-an-hour winds. And then it comes down to the running games. And I like the Rams running games. It's not the Bears. And you can really exploit the Rams on the passing game, as we saw last week against the Panthers. Their defense, when it comes up against a very tough, physical, run-the-football-down-your-throat football team, can really give up a bunch of yards. I think Monungai and Swift just bulldoze their way through the D-line of the Rams. They have huge games, the two of them, and I think it's enough. I don't even think they win this game because of Caleb Williams. I think they win this because of their running game.
I think the Bears defense has no chance in this game. No chance. You saw what the Packers were able to do to them offensively last week. Now go ahead and instead of Romeo Doubs, put Puka Nacua in that spot. I don't know how the Bears are going to be able to get stops. So I
hope you're right.
I really like the Rams in this game. Now, 4.5 is a lot of points in a game like this on the road. But I think it's like 31-27, 31-23, something like that. Rams come out victorious. They get the win on Sunday night against the Bears. Alex, how you feeling?
34-27 Bears.
Wow.
Yep,
really?
I think the Bears win.
Okay.
I think cold temperatures and I think the inability to make stops for the Rams defense is going to get to them. I'm with T-Bone. I think Swift and Monungai have a huge game in this one. So I think the Bears win.
I've seen a lot of Bears hype going into this weekend. I have not seen a ton of hype for any of the other 3+ point underdogs. The Bills are obviously getting a lot of hype going into this weekend. They're only a 1.5 point underdog, but 49ers, Texans, not getting a whole lot of love.
It is interesting, though, that Bills game flipped because when the week started, they were the favorite, and now they're not.
Yeah, that one is, when it's a 1-point line like that, it doesn't much matter either way, but it is a little bit interesting to see it kind of jump over to the other side. If you guys want to hear any of that, you can hear it on 101 ESPN this weekend. Coming up next, though, we are going to be talking to Mike McKenna, the former NHL goalie. He'll join us here at BK and Ferrario.
New year, new
Jamie jersey giveaway. This month I'm giving away a signed Jake Neighbors Winter Classic Blues jersey. It is phenomenal. We all know how good they looked up there in Chicago. It's going to look great on you as well. Register to win that autographed Neighbors jersey right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 ESPN mobile app. Jamie's jersey giveaway is presented by St. Luke's, ranked the top 2% in the nation for cardiac surgery by Health Grades. Visit stlukes-stl.com. Open up your 101 app for your chance to win a 4-pack of passes to the St. Louis Golf Expo, coming up January 30th through February 1st at the St. Charles Convention Center. Enjoy free lessons, instructional seminars, a first look at the newest clubs, special skill contests, and much more. Enter to win that 4-pack of passes to the St. Louis Golf Expo now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Banged up Blues host White Hot Lightning. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Minus top scorer Robert Thomas, St. Louis hopes to halt visiting Tampa Bay's 11-game winning streak. Note Lightning puck drop set for 7 o'clock tonight at Enterprise Center. John Cooper's team hasn't lost since December 18th. College hoops, the Billikens eye continued success against Richmond tomorrow. SLU remaining undefeated in A10 play. Mizzou, meanwhile, battling LSU. Illinois draws Minnesota. NFL divisional round action features Bills, Broncos, 49ers, Seahawks, Texans, Patriots, plus Rams, Bears. This Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN, broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center, presented by Bud Light and Skimmers Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. We're going between the pipes with former NHL goaltender Mike McKenna.
Mike McKenna. How do you like me now? Between the Pipes is refreshed by Macadoodle Spirits, fine wine, beer, and cigars. Now open in Darden Prairie.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by our friend, former NHL goalie Mike McKenna, joining us as he does each and every Friday on behalf of Macadoodles. Mike, appreciate the time, man. How you doing today?
This is a great day. It's the best day. The Blues won a game and we're on afterwards. I know it's been a few days, but they waxed the Hurricanes. They get a shutout from Joel Hofer. Couldn't have made my daughter happier. She got a Hofer jersey for Christmas. And I'm in a rink right now in Wisconsin. I just saw an old teammate of mine, Andrew Jodry, who runs the rink for Ryan Suter up here. Guys, can you tell I'm excited? Life is good. It's a great day. How are you?
We're great, man. Did you see Ryan Suter? How's retirement for him? Is he missing St. Louis?
I haven't seen him. I actually would love to. When he was drafted by Nashville, I was drafted the year ahead of him by Nashville. And when you're a college kid back then, I ended up having to give him a ride from the airport. So, we're old buddies back to that one ride in the car and occasional meetings at center ice. So maybe we'll get a chance to catch up.
That's awesome.
Mike McKenna here on 101 ESPN. All right, Mike, you mentioned it. 3-0 shutout victory for Joel Hofer the other night against the Carolina Hurricanes, one of the best teams in the league. What stood out to you about his performance in that game?
Just totally in control. And if you guys can't tell, that's the end of the period here for the game that we're watching out here. Anyway, Hofer really, when he's on his game, he's at the top of his crease and he's in control. And what I love about him is that he has such an active stick. And I'm not just talking about the way he handles the puck, because I'm forever amazed at how teams continually just give him the puck, which really couldn't be dumber, considering him and Shesterkin are two of the best goaltenders in the entire league for breakouts. Bennington right there as well. He really does a nice job of clearing the crease in front of him. And when the team gives him solid defense in front, when the team blocks shots that are coming down the pipe on the middle and lets him focus just on the shooter, Joel Hofer can play big-time minutes in this league. And you look at that, the last couple games here, like the Blues have blocked a lot of shots. They've played hard hockey. They've been good about it, and they've given, especially Hofer when he's been in, a really good chance to win. So couple big moments, couple big saves in the second period I thought really kept the team in the right frame of mind. Big saves on the kill. He just looks confident right now. And again, for me, it's just being about in position and set at the top of his crease. If he's deep, not a great sign. If he's out at the top, looks good.
Mike, kind of continuing with that, because I'm obviously projecting forward, but Hofer started the year off, and I think there was a lot of concerns of like, oh, no, maybe this guy isn't ready to be a number one. And from December on, he has been one of the better goalies in the NHL. He's tied for the most shutouts. Do you think Joel Hofer is starting to show that ability, like he's ready to take on being the number one guy that potentially plays 45 to 50 games in a season?
Yeah, and, we've had this conversation of what does today's number one goalie look like? It does not look like Grant Fuhrer when I was a kid and you guys were a kid, where he played 80 games and poor Bruce Racine couldn't get a start, which old Racer deserved a lot more than that. And Bruce is one of the top goaltending development talents. He's in St. Louis and he's had products like Joseph Woll and others. But I think for Hofer, he's showing that he can carry the mail when it's needed. He's still young in his career. We've still seen him play, some games that weren't his best this season, but that's every goalie. So I think it's all trending in the right direction where, let's say you're going to go into next year and you're saying, okay, Joel Hofer is the guy for us that we think will be our guy in the net. Okay, and I'm not talking about trading Bennington or anything. I'm just thinking about projection for the team itself. If that's where they had to be going into next year, I think they'd be very comfortable giving Joel Hofer that 45 to 50, 55 games if it was called for.
All right, I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question. It's something we've kind of thrown around off air here on the show, and I'm curious your perspective on this, Mike. If the Dallas Stars called you up and said, hey, we will trade you Jason Robertson straight up for Robert Thomas, what do you say if you're Doug Armstrong and the St. Louis Blues?
I still wouldn't do it. Here's why. I love Robertson. I also do have memories of Robertson showing up after his junior career in Texas to our Texas Stars team when they sent him home. Guys, it was unbelievable. He showed up and he was so out of shape, they sent him literally home. They sent him to Gary Roberts and said, go get in shape. Well, he showed up the next year and was an absolute menace and a machine. So I love the guy. I love his talent. I just think Robert Thomas right now hasn't had first-line players playing with him yet this year. And I know that's going to sound drastic, but just simply look at the statistics. They speak for themselves. When you look at Kyrou and Buchnevich and anybody else that's been up on that top line, they have not played at a number one line level. I think we still haven't seen Robert Thomas have a chance to play with top flight players. And I think if you gave him that opportunity, you'd see him be a true number one pivot that he can be in the league. He wants to dish the puck. We all know that. He needs people that can finish with him.
With that being said, and I think, we've seen the rumors come out this week of teams saying, hey, Robert Thomas's name has been floated out there. if that's the belief of the front office, Mike, and they decide to, go a different direction and move other pieces off of the core, if it still struggles next year, at what point do you look at it and say maybe he's part of the problem?
Well, you can, but you can also look at it and say a second-line center in the NHL that's making $8 million is a hell of a value. So, that can go both directions with it. I still think it's kind of similar to when there were rumors of Binnington being on the trading block for Edmonton. I thought it was a smoke screen the whole time. I thought GMs around the league were pumping the media full of info saying, yeah, I heard this team talked about Binnington, when somebody just asked. I think that's literally what's happening here with Thomas. This is pure guess. This is pure speculation on my part. Somebody asks about Thomas. Blues say, yeah, probably not. And then, of course, it says, well, people are asking about him, and he's in the mix. So, I think $8 million for a number 2 center or a number 1, whatever it is, it's still a value and somebody you'd want to have in your system. It would have to be a bigger haul than just Jason Robertson, which I don't think any team's willing to do right now.
We're talking to Mike McKenna for just another couple of minutes here on 101 ESPN. We'll ask him in a moment what is going on this weekend out at Macadoodles. Mike, when you look at where the Blues are situated right now, I mean, they're toward the bottom of the standings in the NHL. As of today, they're one of the favorites to get a top pick in next year's draft. How do you view them approaching the next couple of weeks prior to the NHL's Olympic break?
Well, I think Doug Armstrong's going to be listening to anything. There's definitely assets that can help. If they wanted to move it, how much would you get for a return? That's a bigger question. And can your team even tank and get worse is another question, because nobody on that team wants to be worse. I think if you're the players, you're absolutely head down thinking, we can still be in this fight. You're a couple weeks removed from being 2 points out of a playoff spot. And I know other teams have games in hand on the Blues, but there's such a pride factor, and there's a lot of players that aren't happy with themselves. There's no way Pavel Buchnevich is happy that he scored 3 goals in his last 17 games and only in 2 of those. There's a pride factor that's got to take over. So I think from the player perspective, they know they have to bring even more, and it's got to be consistent, not just for themselves this season, but for their own careers. You don't want to be known as a guy that underproduces in the league. And I think for the front office, you're listening to everything. There's just no way around it, but it's hard to make a hockey trade. It's hard to make your team better immediately. And I don't think the Blues are in a mode where they can just tank and hope that they get number 1 when they're already in a decent enough spot for that as is. So it's actually kind of an advantageous spot, I think, for the Blues to be in that regard.
On the other side of that, Mike, some of these younger guys are kind of thrust into a bigger position with all of these injuries they've dealt with. Dvorsky, Stenberg, Jimmy Snuggerud had some really good performances recently against the Carolina Hurricanes. Are you starting to see the development of what those guys can become for the Blues in the future?
Yeah, Dvorsky especially. Stenberg is really cool because he fits that real Swedish mold where those guys a lot of times come over and are really responsible from the get-go. And I got to tell you, I'm up here in Wisconsin for these tournaments, and I got a 12 UA1 team that I started tracking plus-minus for this year, and it was a real eye-opener for a lot of kids that didn't even know what that stat was. It shows you good and bad, and you can't hide. And, I mean, just look where Stenberg is, man. The guy's plus 6 or 7 on just starting to make his way in the NHL. It shows the responsibility he plays with, which means you're going to want him in the lineup, and there's more there offensively. Dvorsky, it's been coming. It's been baby steps, and I still think Snuggerud, just because of the injuries, we really haven't seen him hit his stride. But for someone that's a pure sniper like him, it really does show how hard the NHL is. It's not easy to score in the league. He had a great burst of energy last year. He's shown it at times this year. That consistency will come. The way he releases the puck, I'm confident. I'm sure the Blues brass is confident that he is somebody that they're going to be able to count on to score 20, 30 goals at least in the future. We're probably just still another year or 2 away from that maturity of seeing it.
Alex, the Blues, here's some fun trivia for you. They have 3 players on the roster that have played multiple games and are a plus on the season. All 3 of them are Swedes.
Stenberg,
yeah,
Berggren, Broberg.
Yep.
Swedish players, man, they have one definition. It's they're responsible on both ends of the ice.
And that's pretty tough considering the Blues on the season are a minus 44 in goal differential.
That's why when people brought up the narrative, because, I tweeted out after the extension for Broberg, I'm like, this is a steal. But somebody's like, how is it a steal? $8 million is a lot for a guy a part of the worst team in the NHL. He is a plus. The only defenseman that is a plus on a team that has given up the most goals in the National Hockey League, who plays the most minutes.
To be fair, Hunter Skinner also a plus, but he only played one game.
Respect for the Hunter Skin man.
The only hard part, guys, is that the Swedes are just tough to compare because their hair's better, their style's better, and us North American guys just really have a hard time competing with that. Like, look at Hank on the TNT broadcast. I knew my TV career was dead the second I saw him up there. He's beautiful.
There's no competing with that, man.
All right, Mike, what can people expect this weekend when they walk through the doors out at Macadoodles?
Well, we still have the best NA selection, the best THC-infused selection in town. We're north of the Page extension at Bryan and Feisey Road out there in Dardenne Prairie. That stuff's going to keep rolling all through January. We've got some cool bundles for things, but the stuff I'd like to talk about today real quick is that we have a couple of really cool events coming up. Still 6:30 is going to be in the building for a whiskey dinner paired up with Sugar Fire. That's a $50 ticket. $25 of that basically gets you your food, and then you get a $20 purchase credit for Still 6:30 that night. So might as well come take advantage of that, get some great whiskey that's local. We also have Rieger coming in from KC to do a component tasting a couple weeks after that, and a full-on Valentine's Day Italian dinner paired up, Sugar Fire making the food, wine coming in from Terra Firma from all around the country, all around the world. Check out our website. Great events coming at Macadoodles.
Still 6:30 event's really cool. They do some good stuff. I really like the Rally Point.
You had me at Fine Italian Dining.
It's a cool local whiskey if anybody wants to check them out. Check them out over at Macadoodles if you would like to do so. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week.
Sounds good. Here's to a great game tonight, guys.
Yes, sir.
See you, Mike.
It's Mike McKenna. Appreciate his time as always here on 101 ESPN. I just saw this on Twitter, guys. This Bears game is going to be -2 with like 20 to 30 mile an hour gust winds.
That's why I don't like
Is that
the
colder
Rams.
than that Chiefs game?
No,
not
like
quite.
20s.
Yeah, that was
those
like
people were
-20.
just absurd.
The
wanna go?
cheapest ticket to get in right now,
You couldn't pay me to go.
$450.
No
That's the
freaking way.
cheapest ticket to get into the door for
No
this Bears
freaking
game.
way. You couldn't pay me to go to that game. You could tell me I am going to give you sideline access for the second half, and I'd say, get the hell out of here.
Yeah, unless I'm indoors. No, sir.
I'll be at
I'm
home
good.
in my Snuggie.
Does not appeal to me.
Joke's on you.
If it's like the only Rams playoff game I could ever get to go see, I would do it.
For
No way.
$450?
Yeah.
No freaking way.
They're like, if you paid me to go, I would go.
Nope.
Yeah.
But for $450,
And that's a little rich for my blood now. But if you said like, "Hey, only playoff, I'll buy." It's the only Rams playoff game you could ever get to go to.
I can't
Are
even,
you in?
I
I'd
wouldn't
say yes.
enjoy it because I'd be thinking about how cold I am the whole time.
See, that's your problem. See, cold. You just got to think that you're warm, and you'll be fine,
Yeah,
man.
sure. Believe me, I was telling myself at the Winter Classic in Chicago when I stood there for 12 hours, it's fine. I'm not cold. I went back and I had to de-thaw my entire body in the shower.
That's Alex. He's T-Bone. I'm BK. The Rewind next.
The Blues play on 101 ESPN.
Big save on one end. Tie game on the other.
Tonight, Blues and Lightning. Pregame at 6. Puck drop at 7.
Score! He tucks it in with a great move.
This is your exclusive home for Blues hockey. 101 ESPN.
Alex, this weekend, a ton of great football is going to be on television. Opened up my Underdog app earlier today to take advantage of all of that action, and they showed me I've got a gimme pick. One of the quarterbacks. You can select who you want this to be on. I went with Josh Allen. Higher. I don't know if he's going to be able to do this, but we'll see. Higher than 0 passing and rushing yards combined in this game this weekend. I like him to go higher on that. I also like Kenneth Walker to have a long rushing attempt. I like Puka Nacua to go higher on his receiving yards, and Kyle Monangai to get a touchdown either on the ground or through the air against the Rams as well. Put all of that together. It's 4 picks. It's 10-1 odds over on the Underdog app. I can do it. You can do it too.
And you know how I am. I'm probably going to add 6 more to that 4-pick play that BK does, because why not? Use the flex option over on the Underdog app. What are you waiting for? So much action this weekend. Download the Underdog app today. Use promo code BKO and score $75 in bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's promo code BKO. Underdog, make plays win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncpgambling.org.
ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app presented by Ted Drew's Frozen Custard. Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, you're tuned into BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Presented by Bud Light and Skimmer's Original Vodka Iced Tea on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
If you guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out at the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is all sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
The 101 ESPN app, super easy to use. It's free to download. It is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Today, we had a very extensive conversation exploring where the Blues currently find themselves, what the future should look like. Does it include Thomas or Kyrou? Should it include Braden Shen, Jordan Bennington, Colton Parayko? If you want our full extended thoughts on that, you can find that over on the podcast page. You can also see it on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN-STL. We caught up with Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, Mike McKenna, the former NHL goalie. Lots of good hockey conversations today. Also talked about Kyle Tucker going to the LA Dodgers and what that means for the possibility of a cap in Major League Baseball. And we've seen a million different texts like this. If there is a cap, just assume we're also talking about a floor. That one doesn't happen without the other.
Yeah.
So, yes, I agree. They have to get a floor to go along
Can't
with
have
the
a
cap.
ceiling without a floor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's...
Will it be a hard ceiling or a soft ceiling?
That's something to keep in mind.
The Dodgers will push for a soft one.
Oh, yeah.
Blues back in action this evening, taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Alex, what do you find most interesting about this matchup?
The young players, man. Without Robert Thomas, who's not playing again tonight, Broberg's a game-time decision. You thought Carolina was a test. This is a real test. I mean, the Lightning have won 10 in a row. This would make it 11 in a row if they win tonight. What does Dvorsky do against this line? You know, Stenberg's going to be playing on the top line. You're matched up against Kucherov, big boy. What are you going to do tonight? So I'm going to keep my eyes glued to Stenberg, Dvorsky, Snuggerud, Mayu, Tucker, Kessel, these guys when they match up against this elite type of talent.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go up against this team for how well they are playing. And they've had rest, too, right? Like for Carolina,
they've
for
sat
how
around
good
for
they
2
were.
days.
Yeah, Carolina had just played the night prior, I think in Chicago, if I remember correctly. So
No, Detroit, I think it was.
Detroit, that's what it was. So they came back, and, you know, second night back-to-back, you kind of understood what happened. Okay, yeah, that's not the case with Tampa. They've been sitting around. They've been practicing. They're going to be full throttle ready to go tonight.
I don't think this is going to go particularly well for the Blues.
We
but I'm
said that
excited
about
to potentially,
Carolina.
Be in attendance for them. Joel Hofer is the guy that I'm watching, though. Joel Hofer is starting to figure it out, man. His numbers are back up to like a .905 save percentage on the season.
It's only the second time he's been above a .900 save percentage all season.
Yeah, and it's basically exactly where he was a year ago, and we were happy about the performance that they got out of Joel Hofer last year. So that's one of the biggest things that I'm watching for tonight.
Would you say good or bad mojo that if the game's going poorly in the second period, we just pot down the television and I take over play-by-play in the second period?
Good mojo. Go ahead and do it.
It shouldn't come back to bite me, right?
I thought we wanted a higher pick.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So
I should boycott it just for that.
Don't you touch that.
Don't touch that dial.
Mizzou takes on LSU tomorrow in basketball. KenPom has this as a projected loss. LSU is not very good, but road games are really tough. And in the SEC, if you're able to get a win in that, it'd be a hell of a win for Mizzou. Illinois this weekend takes on Minnesota. It's at home. You got to win this game.
That's a loss.
That's got to be a win.
Not only win this game, this thing should be ugly. Like, you should kill Minnesota. I also think Mizzou should win that basketball
I do
game
too.
as well.
For how bad LSU
I'm not going to say, on the road in the SEC. No, you got to win that basketball game. That team stinks.
Final thoughts here on the NFL slate. Bills versus Broncos. Who we taking?
Bills.
I'm going Bills as well.
Bills for me. 49ers versus the Seahawks. Seahawks for me. Texans versus the Patriots.
Texans.
Patriots
for me. And Rams versus the Bears. Last one.
Bears.
The Bears.
And I am going with the Rams. That is all going to take place this weekend. We will talk to you on Monday at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
The Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the